last meeting. Could you say a couple of words about that, please?
Yes, I just want to point out that about 6 weeks ago, there was a brush fire burning in the San Dimas area towards Camp Rocky. And I went over to make sure we had everything in place, and the staff had pre-positioned everything for a proper evacuation should they need it, but they had done some preliminary evacuation of visitors and non-essential staff. Unfortunately, one of those visitors inadvertently backed over a cliff and down onto the road below. Probation staff and ISD and a few others up there, Departmental Health, all ran down to assist extricating them from the car and rendering aid until such time as San Dimas Search and Rescue arrived. And Catherine Barger and the Board of Supervisors recognized them with scrolls at the board meeting last week for their courage under fire, literally. So they were actually managing 2 reoccurring emergencies at one time, and it was very well handled. I was very impressed.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we move on to public comment? Okay, so before we move on to public comment, I move that we accept the POC's 2026 Los Padrinos inspection report as presented. And can I have a second on that?
I second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Brooks. Wendy, do we have any written live or public comment?
I believe we do have written public comment on this item that's attached to the agenda, and you're welcome to submit further public comment. So this would be the opportunity to comment on these POC updates and the Los Padrinos inspection report. I don't see anyone in the room who appears to want to give public comment. Do we have some hands raised on WebEx? Okay, no public comment. So turning it back to you.
All right.
I can facilitate the vote. I'm going to facilitate the vote.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll go ahead and facilitate the vote. This is to approve the Los Padrinos inspection report as presented, and I'll just again note that there's one change in the number. So please vote yes, no, or abstain. Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kokani?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Prater?
Yes.
Commissioner Shipp?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
And Chair Canales. So with a vote of 8-0, the Los Padrinos inspection passes unanimously, and I will send it back to you.
Okay, so we're going to keep moving things around. So right now we are going to move over to agenda item number 5. And then after agenda item number 5, we will move to agenda item number 3. So with that, for agenda item 5, we will discuss and take action to approve the decision recommended by the Commissioner Selection Ad Hoc Committee to nominate Rudy Hernandez for appointment as an at-large probation oversight commissioner. His biography is posted on the agenda. The ad hoc committee, which consisted of myself, Commissioners Terry, Shipp, and Meredith, reviewed all of the qualified applications, interviewed 6 candidates, met to discuss the gaps and goals for our recommendation, met and discussed with the POC staff and justice deputies, and then came to unanimous decision. I know it is cliche to say that there were lots of qualified candidates, but it was a very hard decision, and they were all very qualified. In this case, it is completely true. We had extremely strong candidates that included people with lived experience, people who have worked their whole careers in the field of juvenile justice and advocacy, people with expertise in other related fields, and people who have participated for years with the POC. We took the interview seriously, and Rudy stood out for all of us for many reasons. First, he embodies a first-person approach to this work. His answers showed that he truly cares for the youth and the adults served by probation and their families. Second, he has deep knowledge about probation's operations. Not quite the 30 plus years of Commissioner Mundo. Where is he at again? Did he sneak out? um, who's here in the room with us today. Uh, but Rudy has been volunteering as a probation reserve officer for 10 years. He has volunteered in the field offices and the facilities and conducted training for the department. He is aware of law enforcement practices due to his day job as private security professional, and we believe he will bring a fresh perspective to the commission. I also think Rudy will be a good fit, and all his references talked about his work ethic, which makes Sarah and Wendy happy as they are scheduling meetings and inspections. I want to hear from other commissioners on the committee first and then hear questions. To begin, I would like to move to nominate Rudy Hernandez for appointment as an at-large probation oversight commissioner and send his name to the board. Can I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Meredith and Kakani. And so now, commissioners from the committee, would you like to share? Yes, Commissioner Meredith?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about the process was very transparent and information had been shared with all the commissioners on all the candidates for any feedback that would be coming. So everybody had a fair play. Tremendous, the pool was very tremendously impressive, but most importantly, was the passion, the dedication, and the experience that Rudy was bringing to the table that I was impressed by.
Commissioner Ship?
Yeah, I agree with you, Don. The process was a tough one. I think we had a number of candidates. I was I was very nervous through the process. This was my first time doing something like this. But like when you have so many qualified people, it's like how do you decide? And luckily, we had the support from POC staff and the justice deputies to make a decision because I mean, replacing Commissioner Mundo, also known as the King by some in community, was tough, right? You lose a number of experience and information that is invaluable, and so having somebody like Rudy who volunteers his time to do probation work as well as you know takes time out of his day to be inside of these facilities and doesn't get paid for this opportunity. I think that was vitally important and it embodies something deeper than just wanting to be on the commission for being on the commission, but really wanting to give back to the community.
I echo everything that's been said, but just wanted to really thank those who did apply. Every single interview made us stop and think about what we're doing here in the POC, how we can strengthen where there are gaps. And so even the feedback provided in the interviews was so valuable. And so I just want to thank everyone for their applications. It was just, we appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. I second that. And it was a very hard decision because the interviews, they were just so well qualified, and then again, Commissioner Mundo, he is very much missed and the person's filling some big shoes. I don't know, but we look forward to having Rudy on board. So right now, do any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Transparency, we did send the resumes of those that were finalists to the full commission. It was not just us in a silo. We sent all the resumes forward, and when we made our decision, we did ask for feedback before it was finalized. So, commissioners, any other questions or comments? With that, Wendy, do we have any written or live public comments?
We do not have any written public comments. I'm not sure if anyone would like to give public comment here in the room. Please approach the podium, use the raise your hand function on WebEx, or dial *3 on your phone. I'll wait a minute to see if there's any public comment. I'll tell Dr. Gongora she has to wait until the board approves Mr. Hernandez's appointment before she can start scheduling him for inspections, but she probably won't. She's not even listening to me as I'm. We're very excited to have a full complement of the commission and looking forward to working with Mr. Hernandez. No public comment? Okay.
Okay, so with that,
Actually, let me say just the next step is that now that the commission has voted on this, his name will go to the Board of Supervisors and will be put on the agenda for the next regular meeting, which isn't until September 1st. So on September 1st, his name will be there as an at-large commissioner. And upon the board making the decision to appoint him, we will get started with the onboarding process. Oh, I need to facilitate the vote.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. No public comment. Commissioners, please vote yes, no, or abstain to the nomination of Rudy Hernandez as the at-large commissioner for the Probation Oversight Commission to send his name to the Board of Supervisors as the nominee. Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kokani?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Prater?
Yes.
Commissioner Ship?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
And Chair Canales. So with a vote of 8-0, Rudy's nomination is unanimous. Thank you.
all right, thank you so much, Wendy, for that. So now we're going to go back to agenda item number 3. And so we will start today with agenda item 3, an opportunity to hear a report by Chief Guillermo Villarosa on any significant incidents, events, challenges, or progress. We have asked the chief to keep his remarks brief so that we can keep the meeting moving, and we are very glad you are joining us and looking forward to hearing from you. Chief Villarosa.
Good morning. I keyed in on the brief part. So since we last spoke, it, oh, it's green. It's green. How about now?
It's great.
User error. I want to update with respect to the DOJ case, BSCC inspections, and then the local court with respect to the depopulation plan. It's probably easiest to start with DOJ to remind folks the California Department of Justice had filed to move into receivership with respect to the county's non-compliance with the stipulated agreement. Those hearings continue. There have been no changes, and there's been no move toward receivership. With respect to the depopulation instructions by the local court, that order, in essence, has been reaffirmed with specific attention by the judge on Dorothy Kirby and instituting or moving forward to establish a juvenile hall specific to that population. Conversations have taken place with respect to BSCC in terms of what would need to be upgraded or changed to have a small portion of that facility available for approval for use as a juvenile hall. It seems possible. At first glance, it seemed like it would be much more difficult, but it seems like it's going to be within the realm of possibility. And so we'll continue working with BSCC to make that happen. And then to remind folks, that would be consistent with the initial filing with the court that said we would like to establish different campuses for different populations, including a predisposition component for them. So at the conclusion, assuming that would take place, assuming the funding is there, then Los Angeles County would be left with one large facility that would be for predisposition youth, that would be Los Padrinos, and then there would be subsequent facilities for different populations. Nydorf would continue to be specific for those that are with us for long term, so the SYTF, but it would consist of a portion that could take predisposition but identified as SYTF eligible, and then a true SYTF facility. Kilpatrick would be the single location for both predisposition youth as a camp and as SYTF for girls. And then Dorothy Kirby would continue to be specifically for DD youth, those with high needs, and in cooperation with the regional center. The difference would be that it would also have a portion that would be for predisposition youth that have been identified as of that could avail themselves of those services. It would then leave the 2 east camps as the opportunity for youth that wouldn't be most appropriate in one of those other camp settings. They would go to the east camps, and there's 2 camps there. That would essentially, we continue moving in that direction. With respect to BSCC, inspections have continued. They've concluded inspections of Nydorf and of Dorothy Kirby. We expect the results of those soon, and we're scheduled for the re-inspection of LP next week. So I'll stop there, see if there are any questions.
Commissioners, yes, Commissioner Brooke?
Harris. Chief, thank you. I have 2 questions for you on the depopulation plan. One is, could you get a little more granular with what needs to happen at Dorothy Kirby as far as facility updates, potential timeline, and rough budget as you see it, or you've talked about with BSCC of what that would take to get a small portion of that facility up. And my second question has to do with DKC. Also, when you listed what each facility, the population each facility would hold, Dorothy Kirby, you continue to envision that Dorothy Kirby would remain for boys only, for those for youth with those needs, or would you reintroduce girls who also, have developmental disabilities or those high needs, as you reference them?
No, there are no current plans to change Dorothy Kirby with respect to that. I'm not confident in terms of how much it would cost, to be honest. I've learned some hard lessons on making predictions on what any physical changes to a location would be. What I can say is that the big difference is that I believed that it would require significant physical changes because of the new regulations. But because it's been up and running, it's our understanding that we would have to meet some of the old standards, which would make it easier. Most of the changes have to do with when having the predisposition youth, the changes to, it's already single cell with toilet, so that's usually the toughest part. This has to do with the intake and being able to process, so it's much easier. We've listed it out. I just don't have it in front of me, and it was submitted to the court. Maybe somebody can pull it up for me while I'm here with you, and I can give you some more details.
Timeline?
That's a tough one because until we get a vendor and an estimate, I just really don't know. But it was no, I really shouldn't guess.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Kakani?
Thank you for being here and for that update. Excuse me, sorry. You said that most of the changes have to do with like intake and processes, less so construction, or will there be some construction as well?
No, there'll be some physical plant change and some construction. Yeah, it's just not as extensive as we originally thought.
And sorry, you've already spoken to the BSCC about those proposed changes or needed changes?
Yeah, we're in that process. We've certainly engaged them. It's a back and forth. First, you have the initial conversation, tell you which regulations, then we submit to them our actual intent, and then there's pre-inspection, and so that's underway.
Okay, you said there's an inspection, or there will be an inspection?
There will be.
And you said you provided something to the court. That's before the hearing before Judge Espinosa, around what's needed to be done to Dorothy Kirby?
Yeah, we provided from our perspective what needed to be done. The BSCC also independently provided some information to the court. The changes presented by the BSCC were actually fewer than the ones that we envisioned.
Okay. And I know you said you don't have that document, before you right now. Would you be willing to share that with the Probation Oversight Commission?
Yeah, it's a public document. It's not.
My understanding, and Shanna, maybe you can correct me, is that because the proceeding is in the juvenile court, those documents are not accessible to the public. So while you may be correct in saying that there's not an intention to keep it confidential, I cannot access them to provide them. If does that make sense? Shanna, is that your understanding as well? Right. It's unlike the adult court system where I can just go in and pull records down off of a case.
So with that being said, would you be willing to at least provide the proposed changes to Dorothy Kirby Center to the Probation Oversight Commission?
Yeah, just as long as you understand that it is not, like, we haven't gone out and bid and done renderings, right? It's just what we think today.
Right, I understand that. It
Yeah.
would just be helpful to have like a framework for
Sure.
what you all are envisioning.
Yes.
And then, oops. Sorry, I had another question. I know you don't have a sense of timeline, but is your thought within like the next year, or like you can't give any time frame?
I just don't remember.
Okay. I only ask again because, again, this is just based on a few visits to Kilpatrick, but the girls who are there, on a suitable placement order are not doing well. It is not an appropriate setting for them. And it's tragic to bear witness. I can only imagine what it feels like to have to live in that setting and make sense of that and regulate yourself without having a door to close, without having space of your own. And I just, again, if it is a long-term plan and if there was some way to accommodate that seemingly smaller population, I just want to reiterate that because it's really sad and hard. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Kakani. Chief Villarosa, I'm wondering, in the last two meetings that we've had, it's been brought up in public comment as rumors. And since you're able right now to, provide updates with as much information that you have available, there's been some concerns and rumors that there's plans to close some of the camps. Do you have any information about that? And it was addressed that even in public comment, the rumors. So I was just wondering, just to kind of, we have anything on that?
No, I don't have any plans to close any of the facilities we have. Quite to the contrary. I mean, we have very few facilities and we need to use all of them. So no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, so Chief, when the depopulation plan was like initially introduced, obviously it was not supported by the POC. We had different ideas about what the young people needed. And obviously we just had to lend our support to whatever plan was implemented. I felt that part of this depopulation plan just involved a lot of shuffling youth around and didn't really show us, and still, in my opinion, hasn't proven how it substantively improves the condition for them or the outcome for them, especially the change or the move of the young people from LP most recently to Barry J. In my opinion, you guys quickly moved them from LP to Barry J so that the numbers just looked more attractive, and it seemed that you were depopulating and actually weren't. That's an assumption that I'm making, but maybe you can speak more to that. Overall, are you able to speak to how your depopulation plan has improved the conditions for young people and how they're better serviced as a result of the plan that you put in place?
I think one of the biggest misunderstandings is what the depopulation plan was. I think that most folks continue to believe that the court order of depopulating meant to have less young people in custody. And so that when they hear the word depopulation, they think it means how can we get the overall number of young people in custody down as some type of metric or requirement for compliance with some entity. That's not the case at all. I think that it's unfortunate maybe that that's the term that was utilized, but what the genesis of the case was the conditions at LP. And one of the things that was identified as a strategy to ensure that LP would come into compliance with BSEC regulations, because one of the findings had to do with staffing, was to lower the population and Los Padrinos to advance the preparation for reinspection. That's totally different. So it's depopulation from Los Padrinos, not from custody, period. Now, while at the same time, there was a separate endeavor, somewhat related, to ensure that nobody was being detained when there was a suitable alternative, then I think that sort of lent to this. But the overall plan, it isn't just for coming into compliance with LP, but to making sure that we're utilizing the few locations that we have in the best way possible, both as a strategy to get better staffing and to make sure that the services that we are providing to the young people we have are better. And I think we've talked before about how putting a population, for example, at Barry J, that is with us for a longer period, that is older, that many of them have already graduated from high school and they need different services, it would make sense to have them in one location because they're there for a much longer time. It's very different than transitional population that you typically have at a predisposition facility where they're with us for 30 days or less, and most of them are still in high school and need credits. So the idea is that by assigning different campuses to different populations, we would in time be able to provide better services. That still continues to be the goal here. And the move of young people that are with us for a longer period and are older to the juvenile hall at Nydorf is logical. The question is, when do we do it? How do we do it? How quickly do we do it? When are we ready? All of those are fantastic questions, and we want feedback on it. But the idea of having them there absolutely makes more sense. With respect to sort of measuring whether we're doing better, I mean, I do invite folks to go and visit. I think the conditions at Nydorf are much better today than they were a year ago. I think that the conditions at LP are improving. I think that visit to these locations bears that out. There, this isn't strictly linear improvement. There are areas in which we have to readjust and make changes. Certainly, Kilpatrick has posed some additional challenges, some of which were not anticipated and we have to adjust to. But the overall plan continues, and I do believe it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
Good
thank you for
question.
such I have a follow-up question, a full response. You and I had a one-on-one meeting many months ago, so I'm very clear on the difference between depopulating and decarcerating, right?
Okay.
And so I understood that based on the plan that was going to be in place, you were going to be depopulating, meaning you would be moving young people around to attempt to try to achieve comply, you wanted to come to compliance with staffing levels. Staffing remains an issue regardless of the plans that you've put in place. For the most part, every place that I've inspected has suffered from staffing issues. So when I talk about how youth are being serviced, it's with the understanding that the staff, we haven't reached sustainable levels in order to make sure that that's able to happen on an ongoing basis without making these last minute moves and doing these things that are disruptive to other people's programs, other populations' programs. Because now SYTF youth are grieving about the impact of the move of the LP youth into their program, right? The incentive structure looks different, the behavior is different, the unit climate feels different. And so when we're talking about the plan, it's like understanding the primary, secondary, and all of the unknown effects of the decision. And sometimes those parts feel like flawed to me.
No, I mean, I accept your perspective. These are not rash moves. I believe they're in line with our values in terms of putting young people in the right place, and they're well thought out. The number of young people moved, when they're moved, staff being ready to do that, not mixing. I mean, this is the juvenile hall component. They
Yeah.
were in a predisposition, they go into another predisposition facility. So I have a slightly different perspective in terms of how we're managing, but of course, reviews by POC will let us know if we're um, making those marks or not. I think it's premature with respect to this latest move, if that's what we're referring to. We'll have to see what impact it has. Ultimately, that is where these young people need to go anyway. And in terms of staffing, it's we have to talk about facility by facility, and there's a significant difference between how an employee or how an observer they feel if there's sufficient staff or not. But in terms of BSEC and DOJ, we're making the marks at Nydorf and we're making the marks at LP. And it's because we have a multitude of approaches to matching the needs. One of them was the depopulation plan. The other was moving staff from the field, which I'm sure we're going to talk about at length here, into the facilities because we do understand math and simply moving staff around may gain us some efficiencies, but overall we needed more people assigned to the facilities. And that's why we have the majority of our full duty staff in the facilities instead of working in the field. So that happened at the same time. And that's why we know that we're making the required staffing at LP and Nydorf. Whether there's sort of an environment that where staff feel like there's enough of them or they're not being overworked or we're not having to hold them over, that's different. I just wanted to make clear that from our perspective, that the legal requirements of having the sufficient number of staff for the number of youth is being met at both of those facilities.
Commissioner Prater and then Commissioner Meredith.
I was going to ask, you said this recent move of predisposed youth from LP to Barry J. What number is that? I'm hearing that there was 22 or are there 22, 23? Is that the number?
8 young people were moved.
8? How many are pending?
That's 8 young people were moved, and we'll certainly notify folks if more are moved.
So do you have any insight on this? We're hearing the number of 22 to 23 that will be moving in advance of the BSCC re-inspection of LP. So are more going to be moving? And does that number sound about accurate to your team? That there will be an additional 22 or 23 young people moving from LP to Barry J?
I know it would be irresponsible of me to, in advance, let you know who or when they're going to be moved. What I can tell you is that I can share with you overall how many young people are still at LP that would be eligible to be moved to Nydorf. Whether we're in a position to do that or not is different. And that's why only 8 were moved. And then we hold and see what's appropriate and see what we can sustain and see what kind of staffing we have for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we had an excess of 50, 63 before the move of the 8 that would have been eligible to go to Nydorf. Right.
And then the families, I think that part of Commissioner Jackson's sort of like concerns are about the staffing and then really the experience and the programming that folks are going to experience. So I think that's part of the heart of the question. Have families of these 8 and the prospective folks who might be moving over been notified about the change? And that's a very, very different location, right? So all those kind of like precautions have been taken and plan has been made, I'm assuming?
They have been notified,
Okay.
yes.
Commissioner Meredith.
Okay, being the T-Rex in this commission, going back 25 years, the old commission, this one, I want to point out that years ago, we'd have about 3,000 people in custody. Now we're down to about 674 on a given day, and that's including the adult side that was provided back to us courtesy of the SYTF program. So I just wanted to point out that we have been reducing the populations over the years towards that goal. As much as we'd all like to set them free, we know that's not practical. My question is, and this is just a question for more of clarification for the public, is that we, probation, don't decide who stays in custody. That's the court. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly something that has been of major interest to this body is is to see if we're on the same page as how many of the young people that are detained are being detained, but at the discretion of probation rather than by order of the court. Now, I think we've provided those numbers quite a few times, and the majority of the young people that we have are there because there's a judicial assessment that has determined they need to be there, or because there's a warrant and we're pending. There's a small number that is because a risk assessment has been conducted by probation, and at least for that initial period until they see a judge, we've determined that there is no less restrictive, safe alternative for them. But we continue to say the majority of the young people that are within our custody are there outside of the discretion of probation.
Thank you.
Just wanted to kind of clarify one last time. Sorry. Unless I don't want to leapfrog anybody. You're good, Commissioner Harris. So there are 63 that are eligible to move in transition from LP to Barry J. And there are 8 that have currently, that have recently been moved. I guess I want to get clear on if there are 22, and then you don't feel comfortable sort of like stating that number here because it sounds like we might be putting the cart before the horse here. But if 23 or 22 youth were to be moved to to Barry J by Friday, I know we're going to talk at length about the staffing plan and the shift from folks in the field to the facility. Will there be enough staff and programming and support for an increase at Barry J of 30 or 31 in the near future, predisposed youth at Barry J? Will the supports and staffing be in place to support that number, if
Yeah.
that number hypothetically were to occur?
Well, no, I'm not confirming any of your numbers. However, I think I can answer the question anyway, which is essentially the department. I have no plan on shifting young people to a facility with insufficient staff. So whatever the number is that we have at Nydorf, at all times, I have to have enough staff, whether it's +8 or -8 or whatever it is. That's part of the ongoing assessment that has to take place because the population does shift in our locations, and we do have to routinely shift staff from one location to the next. So I guess one of the main concerns or the rumors is that we shift young people without a consideration for having sufficient staff. Usually that comes from the people that are working the location, and they translate that into more work coming our way. But what I can tell you is that we don't look at this once a year and decide, oh, we're behind, we need to staffing. That's occurring in a dynamic fashion throughout the week, every week. Staff is shifted throughout the department to meet that need. Um, do we need more staff? Period. Maybe. I would say that if we have the continuing level of staff not working or unable to be full duty, then we need more staff. Absolutely. And we would need more staff in every area. That's true.
Yes, Commissioner Jackson.
Chief, I can appreciate the confidence that you have in being able to reach like adequate staffing levels. I will say that after interviewing numerous staff members, I feel like you're able to reach those numbers to their detriment. Many of them are exhausted and their welfare is a concern to us, right? They're working doubles, they're working overtime. And so, yes, you're able to reach those levels, but it seems like this sort of issue is going to be perpetuated because inevitably they're going to burn out and levels are going to be compromised again. And we kind of arrive at the same place. So, yes, your strategy sort of seems to work on its face, but it feels like false confidence, understanding that it's only a matter of time before we face the same issues. That's what it feels like to me.
I mean, I hear your comment, and I take it as an overall comment on the number of staff I have available. The shift from one location to the other, that's sort of irrelevant, right? I have the same number of staff for the population that I have, ensuring that I'm moving them to the appropriate place, like you said before, doesn't change whatever my number of staff per youth is. I'm confident that we're moving staff as needed to where the kids are. The second component, which is, do I just have enough staff overall so that folks don't need to be held so folks don't have to work mandatory overtime. Well, I hate to have a nuanced answer, but the answer is no, I don't have enough staff in order to provide relief as I would like to. But it's not because we haven't hired enough staff. It's because I don't have enough staff on the books being paid that are full duty and can do the job. And so we continue recruitment. We have not stopped. We have an external company that we've engaged, and we continue to try different strategies to bring more people in to the academy because we are trying to bring more staff in. In the interim, that's why the shift of folks from the field into the facility. It's, you know, the data that I use to determine if one, we're meeting the statutory requirements and we're following all the labor laws is a completely different question that if a staff member feels exhausted or if a staff member believes there's enough staff. Most staff don't know what the appropriate number or what the ratio is. So when you ask them, is there enough staff here? They're answering a different question. They're not telling you whether the BSCC requirement has been met. They're telling you in their experience from where they're working if they preferred for other people to be there. And we can't discount that because they're the ones doing the work. But we shouldn't conclude by a staff member's opinion if they feel overworked or if they're insufficient people, whether we met the statutory requirements. Those are two completely different things.
They are very different things. I think I'm just, staffing is a very fragile thing, right? You have sufficient levels now, but if you're thinking about the work environment and it may not be sustainable for the staff, then what if your current numbers decline and then you're not able to reach those levels and you're not able to recruit adequately at the same time? Because that's the risk that you run when the conditions are not right for employees. You know, so you meet the level,
Yeah.
but the working conditions are too burdensome, they're too hard, it's too much.
I
They go on leave, they
would-
leave, whatever happens.
I would love to explore this in depth because I hear time and time again the conditions being created by management are unsustainable for the staff. And I reject that. But what's unsustainable is staff continuing to not come to work. That's what's unsustainable. And I ask for, well, what are the things we could do to make the environment more conducive for you coming to work? And I have yet to hear actionable items that actually have something to do with a non-fantastical response, such as hire 500 more people. I'm trying to. Give us more days off. I can't because I have to work within the number of staff that I have. I want to partner with labor. I want to partner with the employees, but the answer is still a math question. And if all of the responses and suggestions being put forward are unworkable or they don't solve the actual problem, then that's why we continue here. I would love to have more employees available so that nobody would have to be forced overtime. Absolutely. I have a legal requirement to have the required number of staff in the facilities. You know, and the way I know that we're not all talking about the same thing is every time that I hear someone tell me there is a field program, a field unit, a field something that is so important that they object to me having moved somebody into the facility, that tells me you're not hearing my first problem, which is when I have a young person in custody, they're entitled to have a sufficient number of staff to make that environment safe. And so it's not that I don't value any of the other things, it's that I'm using every single resource I have to the detriment of other programs to make that staffing. So I want to partner and I invite anybody that has suggestions on how to make the environment better. But what I know is that the best way an employee can be supported is by other employees coming to work so they don't have to be held over and so they could have more people next to them to help them do all of their requirements. But we're open. Things that have to do with wellness, we have a wellness program. We have a wellness program we've agreed to with DOJ of working out. We want to do those things. None of them replace having staff work those number of hours unless more staff either come back to work or are recruited.
Just end with this, and I do appreciate that response. I do find it unfortunate that you reject that perspective because it's exactly what staff members have shared with the POC during our inspections. And so regardless of they feel like they have enough support or they have enough staff to carry the workload, the truth is that the perception of the workload is overwhelming. And it's the overwhelm that leads to the call outs, the burnout, and all the things. And so it's just something to deeply consider when you think about the likelihood that the staff that you do have may be worn so thin that you may not be able to retain them eventually. And it may, again, exacerbate the issue. So it's just, I mean, you're a strategist at heart, right? And so it's just entertaining other scenarios where that's more worst case scenario, but it's still a likelihood.
I no, and I want to make sure I'm not discounting. We hear all these, but I also hear every time I speak to staff things like, until we are able to discipline young people, it's not going to be safe for us, and I can't come back to work. It's too dangerous. That's not something that I can do anything about because the laws are the laws, and they're right, by the way, and I agree with them. So bringing back in a 1970s environment in which there was more discipline for young people in our custody is unacceptable. That's never going to happen. And I'm very clear that, or strategies like they're too violent, they need to go over to adult or they need to go to another facility. No, that's not, this is probation for the young people that we have, and it's the right place. So I just point out that many times folks are functioning from emotion, and that doesn't mean that they actually have the solutions, and that there's probably a portion of our staff who are unprepared or don't want to work this job. They have another job in mind. And we just need to be honest with each other and say there are some things that are not going to change. There are the reforms that are underway will continue. And if we have to find another way, we're going to find another way to get sufficient staff. So it's tough because folks are functioning from emotion and they're exhausted and they've been at this for years. So they only hear half of the message. I am sure there are some people that just heard me say, I don't appreciate them working for us. That's not what I said. I'm sure there's certain people that say I don't take into consideration the conditions of staff. That's not what I said. What I'm saying is that there are certain things that are non-negotiable. The rules and regulations that we have for the treatment of young people, not negotiable. The number of staff that we need per shift, not negotiable. The fact that the priority is the halls and our in custody versus the field and all of our other operations, also not negotiable. So if we can work within those parameters, I promise you, we're open to suggestions and willing to pivot. If the strategy or what I decided didn't work, we will pivot to something else.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate, the in-depth conversation about this because we have seen in the past with the moves, it brings chaos, incidents of violence, a lot of confusion and frustration for the youth and the staff. So, just continuing the conversation on how we can enable these processes to be more smoother where, we're taking into consideration the mental health of the youth and the staff, the preparation with advance notice. And so Commissioner Shipp, I believe you had a comment?
Yeah, just a quick question. While I understand that the department deals with a bunch of day-to-day issues that pop up and have to address them, but I think it is super important for us as a commission, as other people, staff, the board, everybody. Could you just give us what and briefly just tell us about your long-term vision? Like, what are we all doing this for, or in service of? Like, what do you believe the staff are driving the boat to? Do you is that less youth inside of a facility? Is that a more structured approach to probation? Like, what do you see as the chief, as the top executive inside of the department, as your long-term vision and where you were taking the department?
Yeah. Good morning, commissioners. Before the chief answers your question, Commissioner Ship. I just wanted to circle back a little bit to the question about the movement from Los Padrinos to Barry J. And I just wanted again to give it some perspective with the youth that are moved. Technically, to Commissioner Prater's point, they are predispo. Predispo average at Los Padrinos is anywhere between 23 and 30 days. The boys that we are talking about have been at Los Padrinos over a year, over 3 years, over 5 years. So it's hard to equate that to being a predispo youth, but it is. That's the law. So they are. Many of those boys I know personally from being in those units, and I've heard them, as you have as well, their voice asking for different type of programming that they hear is at Barry J, the barbering program, the recording studio, the soon to be the dog training. That's where they want to be, and they know that it gives them a better advantage, a better future. So those things are taken into consideration. It's not done impulsively and knee jerk to lessen the load at LP. And there are many more there that needs to have this addressed. So we hear them, and we, again, we're very thoughtful and mindful in discussing this with those boys, having town halls with the Barry J staff that came to Los Padrinos to talk to them. The boys were moved with LP staff in the vans with them to help assimilate them and get into their rooms. So there were things that we put in place. Some lessons learned that when we opened up the Barry J Juvenile Hall last time, we had some issues. So we were really putting that forward as making it the best transition possible for the boys. So I just wanted to make sure that kind of got heard. Again, I think you probably already know this, but I wanted to make sure that you know that we did put a lot of thought into the move and the timing of the move. So, and I'll have
You just
Commissioner Ship speak on that.
Can I just quickly ask, because the timing of the move was the main issue. It makes sense. It has logic. Like you're putting the predispo boys there that have been there for a long time with the SYTF youth.
Yeah.
I believe they were notified, was it 5 days before or less of the move? So I was just trying to, and it caused a lot of problems. It was chaotic. So if it was well planned and well thought out, it didn't feel like that at the time of the inspection. And that's the part that was more problematic.
And I just want to sort of say, in addition to Mr. Arcos, thank you. That was the response I was looking for when I was asking the question. It sounds like the intentionality, sounds like the thoughtfulness was delivered. I think that the execution of it sounds like it might have been a bit sloppy, but I'm wanting to sort of like be assured that if there are like here that and I hate to, it feels really kind of unprofessional, sort of like to be dealing in trading in rumors, right? It just feels like it is beneath this body to kind of come to this work in that way. But if that is the number that we're hearing and hearing that it's going to be happening rather soon, I just want to make sure that that the intention is there, that the reasoning sounds sound, but that for all the things that you just named. And when I was asking the question earlier, that was the response that I was looking for. And I know that you can't confirm. And that's not no shade towards you.
I give you a
Chief.
whole answer. You didn't like that.
No. But that not in that way. And I know that probably in your mind you believe that you gave it in that way. I'm just going to say, as the listener, it wasn't. That's not how it was. It landed with me. And so, but I just want to say that if that is the intention, which I can appreciate and respect, I just want to ensure that there is adequate staff to support those needs, and perhaps the needs of folks who are predisposed may be unique and different to those who have already been sentenced and are serving their baseline. I just want to make sure that we are being careful and thoughtful about that, given that it feels as if the 8 that were moved happened in a way that felt a little bit haphazardly. And so that is what I want to be assured.
No, and it wasn't. And by the way, no time or place like the present to deal with rumors. I mean, sometimes they're the most difficult and caustic, and it's just better just ask them. No matter how many attempts, I can't give you a number. We're not going to be able to do that today. But I think what we're telling you is that no, this isn't a last minute thing that wasn't well thought out. If there is a rumor or a question of when it was done, we've been prepared to do it but we held in place because of inspections, as we should. And so that's the timing that you're saying. Inspections concluded there, and so then we were ready to proceed.
Yes, thank you. Any more questions before we move on?
Oh, there was a whole question, that's right. I apologize.
Okay.
It's because I was told to be brief and it's not happening. Okay. So the vision remains from 2.5 years ago, but I think if I've said time and time again, we've had these challenges that require my and the department's attention, but in small ways, the department continues to move toward this vision in which we have a multidisciplinary approach, multi-departmental, and based on family dynamics and how we approach the young people and the adults that we have with us, with really just one thing in mind. What opportunities can we provide for that person to choose to self-actualize? And then ultimately, for us to be able to measure which of the strategies are leading to a reduction in recidivism. And that's the big picture. And those aren't just words. Those tell you, if you follow them, how we believe we should be interacting as a group with different insight and experiences, with different things to provide the client or the young person or the adult that we have, with this idea that we should be measured on our ability to determine the needs that the person has and then provide opportunities for them. We can't make anyone do something, but we should be measured on the efforts to provide the opportunity for either the young person or the adult to engage in these pro-social activities. And then ultimately, at some point, a body like yours should be able to measure and come back and say, this sounded fantastic, and we think it's fantastic, but in reality, it's having no downward push on recidivism. Or we know that we can't measure in the first 3 years because they're just areas that prepare someone for later on, or whatever those is, but so that at least we're publicly acknowledging where we want to put the money and why we want the money to go there. Right now, we think we know what the best programs are. I can't come back to you and tell you which ones have the most impact on keeping folks from persisting in the system, in the criminal justice system. That's where we want to land. Those are the conversations we ultimately want to be having. We want to be having conversations or what programs are effective, how we can be more efficient, where there's fidelity to what we intended on doing. That's being done by individual probation officers and directors and programs with very little resources and with very few staff, because they're all in the facilities dealing with the non-compliance issues.
Commissioner Brooks? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
just got one follow. I mean, thank you for that. And the reason why I asked you to articulate that is because the biggest issue that at least for me, from my last 2 years on this commission, have seen is not just staffing, but communication. People don't feel like they know what's going on in the department, where these decisions are coming from, what's the vision, where things are, what's happening, and so they lose the passion for the job, right? Like you talked about, some people don't really want to do the job, but some people just don't feel like the job is for them because some people need the reasoning why behind something, right? And just being told you're being moved from downtown LA to Malibu and you're not being told the reason why is not enough, right? And I think if I was to make a suggestion to you, I think communication from top to bottom needs to be better across the board. And that's just my suggestion from what I'm hearing from staff, from supervisors, from superintendents. Everybody is confused on why things are happening. And I think maybe it is this body or maybe it is departmental communication, but there needs to be some better understanding of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Ship. And I do think it's important to address the rumors because they're circulating and then they just grow if we don't address them. So it is good to give, the opportunity for comment and to address it and to give the insight of what's happening. And I believe Commissioner Harris had one more question before we move on to public comment, but then we will come back to the commissioners again.
I do, and it's like 15 minutes old now, so bear with me, but we're gonna go back. Maybe it's like 20. Chief, you talked a little bit about court orders and this sort of persistent misperception that the department is much more responsible for who's detained in their facilities, um, and then is actually true. And you're right. The court is the ultimate arbiter of whether or not, at a court hearing within 48 hours of, or 48 plus another day of someone's arrest, and if they're detained in juvenile hall, they go to a court and there's a detention hearing, and then if the court decides. But I just think for public edification, it is, and I come at this, I was a defender for 12 years here and in Contra Costa County, and it is hard to overstate the importance of the juvenile probation officer in juvenile court cases. The probation department has opportunities, sits as an actor, as a player in the courtroom, in every single juvenile courtroom that I've ever been in any court in California. It doesn't matter if there's 3 courtrooms in East LA, there's a probation officer in each courtroom. They are there with a voice, conveying what the department knows about a kid, is making a recommendation about a kid, and they do it every single hearing for every single young person that comes into court. So they do it, there's a report written, for the detention report, and then probation has a chance to chime in person on that report. And so the chief is right. The judge decides. He gets input from the district attorney, from the court, district attorney, the defender, and the department. But I think it's like a little bit more nuanced than the court has made all these orders, because the department has made a recommendation in every single one of those orders. The department makes a recommendation about CDP, detention, home. They make a recommendation about transfer to adult court. They make a recommendation about disposition. So every single disposition, which means sentence, right, where a kid's going to go, the department has determined, for the young people that you're talking about that the department has identified can be moved, our long-term youth can and should be moved from LP to Barry J. The department's making that recommendation. Whether or not the court follows it is one thing, right? Maybe the defender is successful in saying they don't actually need to go to SYTF, or maybe they get transferred. I mean, that decision is not up to you, but the department is very involved and in my opinion, very responsible for the outcome of young people at so many different stages of a juvenile court case. And I just wanted to say that for the general conversation.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I would be glad to engage in moving away from at booking. I feel comfortable that the department is system-wide making good decisions there. Where the opportunity for improvement is offering safe alternatives for young people to be released to. If the average is 4 weeks, getting that done in 2 weeks. So it's being able to find appropriate placement in a faster way. Not saying we're willing to cut corners and release them somewhere that's not safe because we have sort of this push. That would be improper. But in having the resources and the people and the collaborations with other departments to say, that would be the real win. The young people spending less time when we know ultimately that they're going to be released to some type of placement. There's definitely room for improvement there. But there are areas that you're correct, very nuanced. But the department makes twice as many CDP release recommendations than the courts go for. So there are areas in which recommendations are being made for their release, but the judges just don't feel comfortable. And ultimately, we respect their discretion. I think that where the department and more broadly the county has tremendous room for improvement is in using the entirety of the department's resources, including DYD, including JCOT, including other programs, in ensuring that if ultimately there's going to be a reasonable and safe place to release the young person to, that's expedited and that's presented to the courts as an alternative.
You, okay, Wendy, is there any public comment with this? And then we'll come back.
Thank you. If you want to submit written public comment, write an email to info@poc.lacounty.gov. I don't think we have any written public comment yet. And if you'd like to make public comment in the room, step up to the podium. I would also invite people to raise their hand on WebEx. And if you don't make public comment today, I think I speak for Commissioners Canales, Terry, and Ship, the officers, that we'd love to hear your feedback about what you think about this change in the agenda and having the updates. So please feel free to give me a call or send me an email and tell me what you think about the change in the agenda. I see Isabella approaching the podium, so we'll get started with public comment. And before you start, do we have any public commenters online, Janae? We do. Okay. All right. So we'll begin, and you can start, Isabella.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Isabella, as Wendy said. I'm a formerly incarcerated policy associate with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. Sorry, I haven't given public comment in a bit, so. Where I work alongside formerly incarcerated and system-impacted people, young people, families, and community partners, advocating for meaningful policy change. I've attended these meetings consistently for about 2.5 years, so I think I've earned some kind of frequent flyer status, maybe. In all seriousness, I come into these spaces believing in empathy, accountability, and understanding all sides. I recognize probation's work is difficult, but partnerships become difficult when meeting after meeting, families and advocates ask questions, sometimes very basic ones, and repeatedly hear, "We'll get back to you. We don't have that information," or "We can't answer that right now." We're talking about young people. They may not be your children or mine, but they are someone's children. I've heard that youth need more discipline and accountability. I agree that both matter, but they have to exist at every level of a system. And I want to acknowledge the officers too. Between work and my commute, I'm away from my children almost 13 hours a day, and that is difficult. I cannot imagine being unexpectedly required to stay at work for 16, 20, 25, or more without having a choice. The officers who continue showing up through those circumstances, treating young people with care and maintaining consistency deserve recognition for that. But unsafe facilities will not become safe through discipline alone. Safety requires mutual accountability. It requires consistency, care, communication, structure, and respect from youth, officers, leadership, and community partners. We cannot demand stability from young people while operating with instability ourselves. We cannot teach accountability without modeling accountability.
Thank you, Isabella. And we'll go to online public commenters, although I'm not sure I know who we're going to first. Oh. Bear with us. As we're waiting, I'll say what I forgot to say earlier, which was to lift up something that the chief said about the sharing of intake data. Not only has it been shared a few times in the past, it's now being shared regularly on a monthly basis with the POC, which gives our data and research team an opportunity to look at trends over the past few months where we've been receiving the report in a similar format. And also, we've been able to have conversations with the team at Probation that's providing the data, which allows for better analysis and reporting overall. So it hasn't been just a few one-off sharing. It's actually turned into a very, in my opinion, effective regular sharing of that data. We have who we got? I can't.
Okay, go ahead. Do I go ahead now? Hello?
I think if
Okay.
introduce
I'll
yourself
go ahead.
before we start. Can you please introduce yourself before we start the timer, if you wish?
Yes, this is Alexis, and Alexis B. for PLC, Julian, and Canales, I don't understand why you're allowing the department to continue to lie to you. I don't understand. If the chief really wants suggestions, he should return phone calls and emails. I've reached out and he allows his secretary to shoot people. If you want a suggestion, put on a blue shirt, go in the halls, and actually give maybe 1 out of the 20 work days a month and be on the line, and you'll see. I don't understand. No one wants kids to be disciplined. Accountability is needed on all levels for the kids, the staff, executive management, everybody. Defend your staff. Basically, make people feel like you really like them. You have staff at home that could be at work with restrictions, but you don't want to allow them to come in. You've been here all these years already, and there's really been no change. Like, can you really identify what you have accomplished? It's been pretty ineffective. And if you don't like this department so much, why do you stay? Why be stubborn? Just help your staff, support your staff. Accountability is needed for everybody, and you can make this better. I've researched you. You're a pretty smart guy, but it's not coming across. It's coming across like you're vilifying your staff. And there's a real strong separation between executive management and the line staff who's doing the work. Just reach out and help them. Bring people back to work. Stop blaming the officers for what's happening. Accountability, accountability, accountability is needed, not discipline. Accountability.
Thank you. Any further online comments? I just need you to tell me their names.
Hello, hi, my name's Evs. Oh, okay, can I begin?
Yes, you can begin.
All right, thank you. Um, I honestly, I'm still like broken if I should read what I wrote down or just say what's on my heart. Uh, I guess I'll go with the latter. I'm so saddened by this, like just this one agenda item. As a person who experienced juvenile hall, um, the entire conversation is such a like I know that we can do different, and a lot of you folks here in the commission and with Judge Espinosa and probation. I respect a lot of folks in the department, but this conversation is just a reminder of like so much work that we need to do. I think even the when I heard that there's no discipline, that discipline is needed. I mean, it's my understanding that unfortunately the discipline is being incarcerated, right? So probation failing to address social issues, and all these excuses and all these it just the entire system is not conducive to address our social issues, right? The ways that we're still trying to legitimize like processes like probation to, and this is nothing personal, please. I understand that some of us work at probation and we feel like it's our heart to defend it. I'm talking about as a community. We really need to stop using state sanctioned violence as a way to address our social issues that are already exacerbated by violence in itself, right? The same state violence. And I just really hope that instead of just showing up to these meetings or being quote unquote pragmatic, we actually put some heart into these positions because our communities needs it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will end with Cornelius Pettis. Welcome, Cornelius.
Hi, good morning. Just really quickly, I'm looking at the June for probation. They hired one account clerk, 0 officers. For that same month of June 2026, 19 officers retired. And I also want to address the chief on, it was insulting to the public and also to Probation Oversight Commission that we don't understand depopulation. If 100 minors are moved from LP to Berry J, the total number of incarcerated people remain the same. I mean, it's just no two ways of saying that. I appreciate your time.
Okay. That's the end of public comment.
May I? Okay. First, Tyreek, I really appreciate your question from the chief on restating his goals. I feel that one thing that I've been consistently asking for over the years is like the presentation of a strategic plan. It's the North Star of the department, and we've really been wanting to see something like that in writing. One thing that feels very clear to me is the lack of buy-in from the people who are under you, chief, and perhaps your leadership style not exactly being aligned with the needs of your staff. That's what it feels like to me, perhaps a lack of visionary, transformative leadership. And so if you could speak more to maybe your leadership style or why you feel that there's this sort of perception of your line staff not having the buy-in that you need in order to have a healthy workforce. Um, but yeah, I appreciate you restating your goal at the very least.
Chief, would you like to um, address Ms. Jackson's comment?
I'm not sure. That's what I was trying to figure out. It might be more helpful to make it a separate agenda item, to do a presentation as to what the department is actually doing internally. I understand the conclusion, and then asking me to sort of defend my ability to be chief and its consequences. But I think there's so much to talk about there that I don't know if you would be open to that being a separate conversation. I'm happy to come back and go through all of it. I actually think that it would probably be good, and it would probably be good to do it publicly and for folks to understand. Since you've given me the opportunity, I would like to say that I do believe in probation. This is with respect to the comment made moments ago. I do believe in probation, and I do believe in probation officers. And actually, the entirety of what I've done since I've been here is to actually ensure that LA County continues to have an appropriate probation department, because it's sort of the interstitial pieces to the criminal justice system, but differently than it has in the past. And but not for all of the court challenges that we have intervening, we could have advanced that much more. But I would love to both address the vision, what is underway to do that, and the interactions with staff. I'll give you as just sort of um, an advance that I think we should talk publicly about the difference between being able to lead folks into what probation will be versus folks not believing in the new vision. And so I think that's important for us to discuss publicly, because there are many of our staff who are objecting to the wrong thing. So an objection to the chief is much easier than objecting or accepting or engaging in the transformation needed to accept that the job that you thought was probation is no longer the case. And many of the conversations and the difficulty that is happening culturally within the department is that second one, which is essentially saying the sooner we continue to have conversations, describe to me what you believe being a probation officer is. And if you find it is not in alignment with what the department is demanding of you, what the public is demanding of you, that's not a leadership problem. That's a problem in being able to help people make life decisions to determine if in fact this is what they want. And so I that's completely different. And I object to anyone that says that I'm trying to dismantle probation. To That's unfair. As a matter of fact, I think if you go back and you take a look at what I've done publicly, it's quite the opposite. It is really in challenging a system in LA County that I think very public has said, we don't need probation anymore. We don't want probation. We think other entities can do it. And I've stepped in and said, that's not the case at all, but fair is fair, and transformation and understanding what it is has to be different. And so I'm sorry I took a little bit longer to essentially say, I think that's like a full agenda item. If you're okay with it, I'd request that.
I think we would love to calendar something like that. I mean, the main issue is that the vision is constantly expressed, but it's not translating. Oh, it's my phone. Sorry, it's not translating, and so we would love to have that discussion to really learn more about what you see for the department.
Thank you. And I do agree that it does need to be a full agenda item. And I think part of the concern and the frustration is not just coming from probation. We have also transitional housing, for instance, that house 290 cases that they're being provided no field visits, no drop-in. The clients are completely unsupervised, and when they go into the field office, there is no probation on site. So we are also hearing not just from probation and the concerns, and it, you know as you explained your vision right now, I'm not even sure that I fully understand it, but I'm sure probably some of the other commissioners are really in visualizing those articulate words, because I can't right now. But I do know that there is some really serious things going on. And when you have somebody that's registered and is supposed to be supervised according to the law, according to the public, according to the Judicial Council, and there's not that other end there with probation. It's not just the halls, the movements, and it's also the outside fields. And so I think a full agenda item would be appropriate. Yes, Commissioner Terry?
Yeah, and including any tangible examples of how there has been some success in moving towards that vision. So a unit even where you saw maybe incidents went down and family visits were up and folks were able to go to school and there were programs in place, and something that we could see, like, okay, there's the vision and we see glimpses of where it's moving towards, or a field office that's just really crushing it right now, something like that. I think that would be helpful for us to see as well.
I mean, maybe we should see some clarity, because I see those as two different things. One thing is essentially saying what positive things have happened. I didn't take that as the initial sort of request, but what I want to stay away from is the popularity contest sort of determination of leadership, because I think we'd all get voted out, to be quite honest, if that was the case. But something much more pointed at, look, what are the goals? What's the vision? What are the things taking place to get there? And then a whole section on the engagement with staff, right? So I think that perception versus rumors for what's taking place, the level of a staff member being happy with the conditions often is reported back as a communication issue. And there's just so many instances where you're measuring the wrong thing. A staff member that is being moved into the hall doesn't have a communication problem. The ultimate thing that is happening is disrupting their life. Communication is not the thing. We have communication with our staff. It's reported back as, folks would be fine if you just engage them more. That's not true. There are some things that are just tough, and communication doesn't overcome that. But if we can show you how those are taking place, irrespective of that secondary acceptance or outcome, I'd be happy to do that. There are many things and many improvements, and maybe we could think of a way to highlight those for you, but it is shocking the difference between even a year ago and our drug interdiction policy in our programs. The fact that we were in a very different place in Nydorf and some of the other facilities in how porous it was for illicit drugs to come in is a completely different reality today. That is because of changes in interdiction policy that happened in the department. That's an incredible change. It goes to the safety of both the young people and the staff. There are many examples such of that, but maybe let's think about a way of highlighting those, maybe if that's important to the POC. But we wouldn't continue going down this path if we didn't see the improvements that are taking place. We have a completely different internal affairs unit that I can publicly say functions with integrity. And if there is a report, they, in a very professional manner, take that information and you can believe in that outcome. That is incredibly important for this department and moving forward. There are many things that are taking place. The use of force when I came into this department was essentially unaddressed. There were so many reports. The backlog is completely worked through, and we have a completely different system. There are many things that take place. None of those things are popular. None of those things change the reality of the employee. That's why, to me, in the conversation, those are sort of completely different things. Um, I, I'm happy to do those. I think those are useful. I think that being able to talk about them publicly, whether we agree or not, and we take your feedback, are important. I just think that it might go beyond sort of today.
I mean, I'll just say this on that. Maybe I worded it the wrong way. Maybe it's not a communication issue, right? But it is a transparency issue. And what I mean by that is people don't know why things are happening, when they are happening, how they are happening. They just know that they are happening. And I know that from my own experience as a commissioner. I hear this from staff over and over again. I can name every single time that a staff member, even up to superintendent, I've heard different levels of staff, even up to that bureau chief level, talk about that they don't know why things are happening or when it's happening or how it's happening. And so what I mean by that is um,
Which superintendent said that? No, I'm just kidding.
I can't reveal my sources.
Snitches
No,
get
no,
stitches.
but what I mean, and maybe it's my fault because I'm diving deep into leadership literature right now with the Lynch and Bombs and the Herbert Simons and the Hill and Lynns. But all of them talk about legitimacy as being a way to build buy-in, not buy-in just only from your staff, but community and departments. And so I think that's what I mean when I say my suggestion is that we need to communicate better, is that we need to be transparent as possible and give our staff everything that they need to actually make a decision on whether they want to be a part of this department. No one wants to hear just do it because you need to do it or because I said so. They want to hear it why we're doing it. What does this look like? Or how do you allow them to have ownership of something or believe in something? And so I think my suggestion is just be a bit more transparent about timelines and why we're doing it or how we're doing it. Give our staff ownership. Let them understand and make decisions on their own behalf.
And
Thank you so much.
there's always room for improvement and development. And maybe we do have an opportunity to go into that. If we show you what's done,
We have another
and then we
presentation.
can have. Oh, there's another. Okay, but
Yes,
I just
what
wanted to
you are
point.
going to do.
Oh, I'm doing it.
Yeah, so the chief is not going anywhere. Before Commissioner Jackson ends with the last comment or question, I'm just going to give the layout really quick. We're going to take a quick break, but then we are coming back with the department for another presentation for more questions and comments. And Chief, thank you for pointing out the use of force because that is true. And, so for uplifting that, with everything else that is going on. And Commissioner Jackson, go ahead
Yeah,
and
I'll be very quick. So, Chief, just so that I'm very clear, and maybe I'm going too broad with this, but like I'm very logic model driven, right? And so when we're talking about your vision, I'm thinking about the ways in which all of your strategies are trickling down to the service delivery point, right? And so if you're saying that your goal is to create opportunities for young people to self-actualize, I'm expecting when I'm going in there interacting with staff and youth that I'm feeling that vision, right? And that's not happening. And so the goal of this exercise is for us to understand how the mission is hovering over this whole thing and how the inputs are equaling the outputs and the impact and overall how you're improving the outcomes. So that's the way that I'm envisioning it. Okay.
okay, thank you. With that, we are going to take a 10-minute break. It's 11:04, so we'll come back at 11:14, and then we will resume another panel with the chief and others from the department. if we want to just get everybody back in their seats. I know probation will be presenting again, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions and comments. Just go ahead. Okay, so for agenda item number 6, we will discuss and take possible action on a report from the Los Angeles County Probation Department, specifically Chief Vera Rosa and Deputy Directors Wolves Gruber and Aguilera, to further understand the scope of community supervision in Los Angeles County, including how many people are under all types of supervision, what types of supervision exist, and the staff and other resources needed to successfully operate field services. We have had meetings on this topic before. However, we have learned that the information we have received has not always painted a full picture of probation's operations in the field. So, we asked the probation department to provide a comprehensive presentation geared toward public understanding of juvenile and adult services outside of the juvenile institutions. We have attached several documents related to the agenda item and some prior POC meetings. We did just receive our documents yesterday, so I know I myself have not a chance to fully read them, but just skim through them. But I do believe some commissioners were up at 4 a.m. reading them. So thank you, Commissioner Jackson. And so, Chief Villarosa, can you introduce your team and who will be presenting today?
Yes, we're going to do a joint presentation on both the juvenile and the adult field supervision component. I should note that we have Deputy Director Aguilera, who is over courts, and Deputy Director Wolfsgruber, who has both juvenile and adult supervision. The reason they're both here is they'll be able to give you more details and maybe answer your more nuanced questions. And so the population that we're discussing today are those that are not inside of the facilities. And so that is a group of folks that are adults on every type of supervision. And then we have juveniles that are on different types of supervision: informal, formal, electronic monitoring. And then there's another group of youth that is in placement. And so we're including those as part of this as well. I hope that maybe the easiest way to do this is I'll start with the vision and the things that we're doing differently and the things that are in process. And then you may have specific questions on either what's being done today or a specific portion of the population or what's changing. And partly out of necessity, and partly because it has always been the vision to enhance the way that we do supervision. On the adult side, the movement of staff into one of the facilities, as everyone is aware, and we've discussed before, has left fewer staff in the field. Now, we haven't closed our offices, and we have pivoted to a different type of supervision that I actually know is superior than to what the county was providing before. But it is being done in a very different way with fewer staff. So rather than having staff in offices throughout the county, we've essentially separated where we do supervision. And so we've said that the most productive interactions that an officer can have is typically at the place where the probationer spends the most time, in their house. There's very little information that you can move forward with that isn't as helpful as meeting a probationer where they live with their family to determine what their actual needs are. And so one of the documents that I think you have in front of you that says the LA supervision model has essentially said we have fewer officers. So we've dedicated the officers that we previously had on the oh, they don't.
So they saw them, but we got them yesterday afternoon.
Got it.
Not in the packets.
Okay, so I'll just describe it. What we had a team that was formerly called Special Enforcement Operations. They're full duty folks. And because so many folks from the field had been moved in or are unable to perform full duty, those folks have been utilized now to do home supervision. And so essentially what we said was every adult that is placed on probation should have a home visit within the first 30 days of being placed on probation. That visit is going to be at the core of determining their case plan. That I'm pausing there because then you maybe you'll wonder then what were you doing before, and maybe I'll let Wolf Gruber speak to that. But essentially, from the 23,000 or so odd people on adult supervision, there was never a guarantee that you'd ever been seen at home. And I just don't think that what the public has thought has been taking place, or that the impact that we have on public safety really matches what we were doing before. And so that even though there are less officers in the field, there's actually more contacts taking place, and they're more meaningful contacts. Maybe I'll pause here and let Deputy Director Wolfsgruber, do you want to describe the activities that have taken place since we implemented this?
Sure. Thank you, Chief. Dave Wolfsgruber, Deputy Director of Field Services. So, as the Chief indicated, and now I'm going to try not to be repetitive because I went over a lot of this at the May meeting, but just to give you an update in the 3 months since then, our community supervision team that the Chief referenced of full duty staff in the field conducting visits, and this is going to be updated once the data are in for the month of July, but I know you're showing about 10,000 home visits. We're up to about 13,000 home visits. And what does that mean in addition to being present for the individuals under supervision, as well as having a better contacting and have a better feel of the overall environment that our clients are living in and residing in all across the spectrum of individuals we supervise. That's also resulted in individuals gaining access to services rather than waiting for them to walk into an office and present themselves in a crisis situation, or that it's too late and they've either recidivated or they've relapsed. Those individuals are now being seen by a community supervision team and directly referred to services or directed to an office where, as I mentioned a few months ago when I appeared before you, we have the AB 109, HR 360, Health Right 360 navigators, and we also have core system navigators as well. And then we'll speak a little bit later about juvenile supervision and our juvenile supervision model that we're implementing. But it's been a rousing success, and I think it pleasantly surprised all of us as to the outcome of what being present in the field, which I understand doing this about 41 years now, what that means, and being present in the community as opposed to waiting in an office, excuse me, for someone to appear for a service when they're already in crisis, to be proactive and supervising. Given the challenges that you're all well aware of as far as staffing, with limited staffing, how could we best supervise a very complex population of about 23,000 adults and 2,000 young adults, juveniles under our supervision? So it's really resulted in successes as far as presence for clients, connecting them to services, fully utilizing our services, including JCOD, which I think has been underutilized for a number of years, in working closely with those folks in some case management and transportation and enhanced services we're working with them to provide, is particularly for our AB 109 population. So since I presented to you last, we're up to about 13,000 visits, as I mentioned, and that's been very successful. And it's actually exceeded our expectations.
Any questions on the interplay of having folks in the office versus going to the field, or those?
It's a clarifying question. I want to make sure I'm following this. So the roughly 23,000 folks who are on the chart that you gave who are under supervision, all of them got a home visit? This 9,952 corresponds to that group of people?
It does. Same group of people. Not all of them have gotten a home visit. The the way we determined to move forward, and Wolfsburg can speak to the classifications, risk levels, but simply saying, look, at the point that you're put on probation, we know it's a best practice to have referrals happen early on or the assessment happen early on. The way we're going to do that is by going out to the residents within those first 30 days. So after the date of implementation, everybody being placed on probation is being seen. And then there are other home visits that have taken place because the case demanded it, because there was a phone call, because they needed something, and they were added to that group.
So this 9,952, and I'm sorry if you said this already, represents how many people? How many people received these home visits?
Visits. There may have been person received 2 visits. It could have been
Right.
right.
That's why I'm trying to understand, was this like 9,000 home visits over 10 people, for 100 people? That's what I'm trying to understand. Or do you all have that number?
I don't know that I
Generally, it is. It is. We're not really counting too many repeat visits because what we do with an initial visit, we are counting some repeat visits, but what we're doing is following up with a phone call. So if we miss that person and they're not home, we can quickly connect them to services instead of waiting for a week or 2 weeks until the team is able to follow up with another visit. So yes, some of the 10,000 number from the first 3 months is in fact individuals
be
that
minimal.
we've seen more than once. But those individuals that aren't seen, we're following up with a phone call as well.
I understand that. I do think it would be helpful to just know the number of people who got the visits. And I don't know if
We
I'm
can do that.
explaining this correctly.
We
Yeah.
can do that.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's not a problem.
Yeah, we got it.
This 30-day home visit, this is for young folks and adults, or this is just for adults?
We're just talking about
We're just talking about
adults.
adults. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Can you, I mean, I remember probably a couple months ago, we had a crazy ratio. It was like 1 to maybe 400 clients supervised for every one officer. And I'm sure that has changed. Do you all maybe have a ballpark of what the ratio is now?
Yeah, I'm going to encourage you to not use ratios. So we've presented a document to you that really, read the asterisk. If you must have ratios, these are the number of officers that we have. These are the number of type of offenders. That is not how they're being supervised.
Okay.
So thank you for that question, because we don't have enough officers to have regular caseloads in the traditional sense. That's why this model has been implemented. If you take the number of officers to have sort of best practices caseloads would mean that we would either have to bank a good portion of the cases and they
Mhm.
wouldn't get any supervision. But I don't think that's the best approach. And so the approach instead, what's happening is that we're getting to every adult early on, making the assessment of where they are, what they need, making those referrals, and then determining, by the way, that visit is going to inform what happens next. If it's someone that is going to need continued contact, and that's going to be documented. If someone that is employed, strong family structure, housing, that's a person that then is not going to get an immediate next visit. They're doing well. So the traditional on the adult side, we could talk about it on the juvenile side, but the traditional on the adult side, look, we have 500 officers. Every officer is going to have 20. That's not possible.
Okay.
So instead, what we have is officers that are doing a lot of home visits, doing referrals, getting information, and then light duty or non-sworn staff that is left back at the office doing the other pieces that are reports or follow up on referrals or that component.
Okay. Well, can you also ballpark me on, and I see that you all presented the home visits number, but could you also do like maybe you do, maybe you don't have this number, but how many services that you've recommended people to? What's the amount of people? What services are they? Like, what areas are we hitting the most? Like, just like a breakdown of what the services look like. Like home visits are fine, and I think they are important, but also like I think half of the job of a probation officer is when you're doing field supervision is to provide those services.
You're 100% correct. And thank you for the question, because I tasked our director of our community supervision team, and we do have that data as far as how many individuals were seen, how many needed a service, the referrals. We actually have a tracking mechanism that's going to be able to tell, like, particularly, I don't know if we're there yet as far as substance use disorder, mental health, employment, housing. We're getting there, but I can definitely provide a report on how many of those individuals that were seen actually received a referral for service. And we've been refining that process as to how we best get that to our field offices to ensure that the people that need to see the referral, including, like I said, our system navigators in CORE and our HR 360 partners, as well as JCOD. And I'm going to repeat myself again, saying that we've underutilized the services they're able to provide, which is another tool in our toolbox to be able to get additional services, including transportation, as we know that's a challenge for a lot of our clients.
No, for sure. Definitely would appreciate those numbers. One last one for the rest of the commission, but also, could you just break down, like, how do you all do the needs assessment? I'm sure you get their case files and you understand what their cases look like, but for their needs, like, is that maybe a kiosk out at the office, or maybe they meet with one of those non-sworn duty officers to break down their needs? But, like, how do you all do the needs assessment for what services they need?
So with respect to the AB 109 population, we conduct a level of service case management inventory, or LSCMI, which is a document. I won't bore you all to tears about evidence-based practices and ensuring that we have the proper dosage of supervision in the context of each individual that presents. And conducting of a validated risk assessment is enormous. So with respect to the AB 109 population, the LSCMI is conducted at intake. We use a document known as the DRAD for core, and then we use the LARC for juvenile. So we assess and then place on caseloads and then reassess, which is a huge component that may not be, yeah. Yeah, and a static 99, absolutely, for it to determine for those individuals that are convicted of a sex offense, to determine the level of supervision. Some of them are placed on a GPS caseload, for instance, if they have a static 99 score of 6 or greater. But getting back to the risk assessments, that's our blueprint for how we designate caseloads at intake and then reassess. Best practice is every 6 months, so reassess every 6 months, or determining based on the individual's adjustment while they're under supervision. Are they employed? Are they using CDS? Are they reporting regularly? Are they arrested for new offenses, which may require, a medium risk case to go to, we would consider high risk and put them on a high risk caseload with more frequency of home and office visits.
I think I was more so wondering about, and maybe this is also included in that risk assessment, but the needs, not really their risk of reoffending, but more so, what do you need? Well, is that does this person have a history of substance abuse? Or if you talk about someone who is have a sexual crime, like, what needs or mental health resources do they need? Like, do those documents include that? And if they do, can we get a copy of those documents if possible?
When you say those documents, you're referring to the risk assessment?
Mhm.
That's not part of the risk assessment. That would inform, the case plan would inform that. So if you based on, you have a risk assessment and then you have a needs assessment, risk, needs, responsivity. So then the documentation that we would have is a review of prior history of substance use. So an individual that might have scored high on a risk assessment, we already know that individual is probably going to need, if they're not already court ordered, to participate in substance use disorder treatment or mental health counseling, that we'll focus on that. I think the chief wants to add something.
This is just how I always look. But we're trying to pivot to make the interactions more meaningful, to look at dynamic factors. A lot of the assessments are sort of based on things that aren't going to change. And then we really focus on this word risk by saying commitment offense is this, and then that becomes sort of the core of how we approach the person. What we're really trying to do is, most comprehensive risk assessments have a needs component in there. Like, for example, it puts you at risk to not have housing, right? Isn't that just a need? You have the need for stable housing. So a better model for us to use is, at the time that we're interacting with the person, what things are happening in their life now, not before. Now, for cases like domestic violence, sex offender, you've got to do profiling so that you understand what you're looking for to determine those things. But beyond that, the things that are really going to impact what happens next with the individual are the things that you can get from that home visit in that moment. You are high risk now because you have no employment, nowhere to live, and your significant other broke up with you, right? Those are needs. You have a need there that we need to make referrals and try to help you with that put you at risk to reoffend. So I almost, we're trying to work with our officers to just try to see it as what are the present things, what are the dynamic factors that we can have an impact on. But that's the important reason to meet people's families, see where they live, rather than hear their best presentation of themselves in an office. Two very, very different things.
No, I appreciate that. And with that, just so we don't lose it, I would like to make a motion, if that is okay with the rest of the commission, to um, bring back this conversation and get it those numbers uh, of that 13K or 10K or however many K. What does those referrals look like? How many referrals happen? What are the types of referrals? What services do you all send them to? Things of that nature. Is that the correct way to make it, Chair? I want to make sure I'm hitting the Brown Act requirement.
How many referrals and,
You don't need a motion. We'll give it to you, but oh
Put it on a memo.
God. Yeah, we will, whatever motion you pass, we will take, but
Just for Brown Act purposes, just to be.
it's from the number that we gave you of home. You want to know how many individuals have actually been seen, how many referrals and what type of referrals came from it.
Bingo.
I may.
does anyone second the motion? Second by Commissioner Terry. Wendy?
Well, I don't want to cut off comment. We'll go to public comment eventually. I just want to make sure I got it right. So it says how many individuals were seen among the visits, how many referrals were made, and then some description of the types of referrals.
Mhm.
Yes? We need the public comment before we go.
Is there, commissioners? Yes. Commissioner Kakani.
So we've been receiving data on adult field services periodically, right? We have 2024 data, we have some 2026 data. Every time we receive the data, it looks different. Every time. Sometimes it's broken down by offices, sometimes it's just core, sometimes it's SRG, FV, and core. Then there's an AB 109. It is so hard. I have this impossible to make sense of spreadsheet where I have tried to collect the data that you've shared. It's impossible. And so I'm just like, I know that ProbeStat was a thing, it stopped, but like, is there some way for you all to provide consistent data so that we can actually track trends? Because, for a long time, we were looking at per office, what was the caseload? And so then all of a sudden we're seeing, okay, I don't even know, I'm just gonna make one up. South Central had a 49-to-1 ratio in terms of cases to PO. And then all of a sudden in 2026, it went to 1,054 to 1, right? And so it's like hard to even know what that means. And then we get this data that you've just shared that doesn't have any office breakdown. So it's hard to even know, do some POs have a larger caseload? Do others have a smaller caseload? And to your point, different cases require different things. Maybe family violence requires more intensive supervision. Maybe the sexual registrants require different type of supervision. But again, just every single time we've received your data, it is different.
I am, yeah, I'm with you. It's tough for me too, but in part because the interest of collecting data, we're working on having an actual case management system. and in which it would be easy to mine any of these things in whichever way we wanted. We don't. So what happens is that either the information is pulled by where it's aligned by budget, like AB 109 core, or it's pulled by office, or it's pulled by, my suggestion is that if, and I don't know if you want to do this via subcommittee or here, but if we determine the things we want to know and we can provide some feedback on how easy it is, then if we could agree, that would be helpful for us too. Because, for example, if there are different strategies in pulling people to go into the facilities or moving folks around, or if something's changed from a probation officer to a probation assistant, or if it's divided by two people because one person does a home visit and another person is in the office, then all those other ways of collecting it aren't going to be valid. Like, for example, if you say, I want to know what the caseload is, it's not really going to tell you anything, because by having someone that has a 50-to-1 caseload or someone that has 500-to-1, it tells you nothing about how often they have to be seen
Right.
or what the interactions are. So I think that, like the previous question, which is, how many people are you seeing? What are the dosages? What are those things will be easier for us to present to you. And if there's a format that you want to request, or if we want to work together on a format, it would be helpful to us too.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm just confused on how you make any data-based decisions if this is the data that we're receiving and every time it looks different. So if you are making data-based decisions, or it would be helpful to know how you all are collecting data. It'd be helpful to know how you are creating caseloads for folks, or how you are assessing, whether a person can have 50 cases on their caseload, or if it makes more sense to have 13. We don't know what we don't know. So every time we get these numbers, and they seem wild to me, and then every time they're different. So if there's a way that you all are collecting data, maybe that's a helpful place to start.
Yeah, I mean, I just described it. I'm suggesting that you not take a look at caseload ratios, because that's not going to be helpful to telling you what's happening in the department. I described what our model is now, which is essentially saying we're going to see people in the place they live within 30 days of being released. That's the period within which we'll be making an assessment and determining what goes further. Then we have these other categories, such as the sex offenders, the domestic violence, that are pulled away because they need more attention. In the future, or assuming this motion passes, we can tell you these many people were seen in this period. These are the things that happened with them. And that, to me, that will tell you much more about the health or what's happening or not happening than sort of the artificial construct of the caseload, because the caseload is not the way we're functioning right now.
And you say not the way you're functioning right now, as of when? Like when, I guess I just for my own, trying to map and make sense of how
Yeah.
young people, not young people, we're talking about adults, how adults are being serviced, whatever the word is. Does it make sense to scrap then whatever has been provided before, because you're effective today, effective?
I would. I think that the other information misleads you as to how much supervision was taking place, because you could have seen the size of a caseload, but you had no idea what the requirements. So I really can't vouch for that data translating into actual activity.
The new model calls for you guys to do home visits within 30 days of release. How do you guys handle cases where probationers are homeless and don't have an address on file?
So we only can base it upon an individual with an address to be able to visit an address. Those individuals that are homeless, we're going to still rely on connecting them to services if they're homeless. AB 109, anyone, and that's those, are you well familiar with AB 109? The individuals coming out of the CDCR system, pursuant to the Public Safety Realignment Act. So those individuals, there's no reason for them to be homeless. And I say that, I understand everyone makes individual decisions, but everyone that wants housing in AB 109 receives housing through HR 360. Our core cases, those individuals that are homeless, that is a challenge. If we don't have a home visit and they're out of contact, then that's a notification to the court, and the court makes a determination as to whether they want to issue a bench warrant or or not. And what we do, we make efforts to contact those individuals by whatever means we have. If we don't have a residence, obviously we can't do a home visit, but we still try to establish contact with those individuals. But there is a point in time where, time has passed, and in the interest of public safety, we have to notify the court, and then the court makes a determination as to whether to declare that individual missing. But that is a challenge. Those individuals that are homeless, that is a challenge to be able to be present for them in the communities, especially if they don't have contact with us.
Yeah, well, is there an alternative? Like, are they then able to visit the office before you
Sure.
give a recommendation to
Yes,
the
I touched
courts?
upon that earlier. Yeah, I said,
Okay.
yeah, they can, if they come to an office and let us know they're homeless, we will then wrap services around. And when I say HR 360, I know they have 100% placement rate. We don't have quite that level of service with respect to our core, just because of the number of clients and the number of available beds. But we make every effort through our system navigators within core to make a housing referral and placement. We follow that case to make sure that it may take a little longer than HR 360. I just want to be clear on how quickly we can attach someone to housing based upon the resources that are out there. But yes, you're absolutely right. If they appear in an office, we can then make a concerted effort to make sure that person has housing.
Yeah, the offices are open. The mobile van is still utilized, I think, a couple times a month. It's a resource van that's placed, and contacts can be made there, different places throughout the city. The next step is improving on the kiosk system, which is essentially being able to do Teams meetings for some folks instead of having them either catch them and they could still communicate. And then lastly, remember, this is just a few months worth, but what I can tell you is my expectation is that we want to help folks not have to be homeless, because that's a risk factor, but we can supervise homeless people, right? And visiting people, although they're homeless where they are, is something that we can do and will be doing. These conversations are helpful because this is in its infancy and it's a complete departure for what the department has been doing. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Piece.
I think the more politically correct term is unhoused people, so I do want to correct myself. But what's the rough percentage of that population? Is it a lot? Is it a little?
I don't have that handy. I can get that to you.
Just roughly.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Does the LA supervision model extend to young people who are placed in LRPs? And is that the number of young people who are in LRPs, is that reflected in these counts, the document that
No.
shows the caseloads?
No. So this is not involve young people. It doesn't involve any of the placement. Deputy Director Aguilera is going to, if it's okay, we can jump from the adult to this population that's placed. So I'll hand that over.
Hello. Okay, thank you. Gabriela Aguilera, Deputy Director. No, the LRPs, the STRTPs, placement, all our SYTF are all follow an intensive supervision model. So they're not counted in the field supervision. It's a separate, it's under me, and they follow the intensive supervision model, which we have not changed. We have been conducting for some time now. And they are seen depending on where they are, some within 5 days of arriving at wherever they go. And the supervision is a little different. They have a minimum of one visit a month, but oftentimes is far more than that. The DPOs visit the facilities where they're at more often to ensure that the services are being provided. Like in those situations, we don't really have to do the referrals that you mentioned before, because they're at the facilities where the LRPs and the STRTPs, where the brain fart, where the services are being provided already. So it's a very different number.
And just to clarify, you said, and those youth are getting a minimum of one visit a month?
Yes. And oftentimes it's far more. And one DPO can go out to see one youth, but there's often several youth there, so you can see multiple youth at one time and verify with the facility that the services are being provided, how they're doing, and our DPOs are in constant communication with the facilities. If there's ever any issues, they reach out to us, and the DPOs are there the next day checking and seeing what's going on.
Commissioners?
Don't know how to use a microphone. So, but I thought about, I think that we're having a conversation offline about like the connection between like the overall mission and vision and what's happening on the front lines. And so when probation officers are coming to visit LRPs, for example, and I'm learning here, and this is kind of a news flash for me, that they're coming to sort of like to verify that services and supports are happening or like that is not clear to me that is the intention for the visit. And so, but I'm happy to know that is a thing that those kind of supervision or visits are comprised of. I will say though that I know that the visits have been positive and they have been frequent. So I do want to appreciate probation, and particularly your division in this space. We do see, probation officers at LRPs quite often, and so that's a great thing. Unclear would be helpful to share with the LRPs specifically what what the checklist is, if there, if you will, of what the visits comprise of. What services are they checking for? Because my experience has been they're coming to do like the check-in, and they're like building rapport with their probationers and also doing testing, right? And having sort of like, some level of case management conversations, which I think are all productive and helpful. But if there are services that they should be observing or monitoring with respect to sort of like what the LRPs are providing, that isn't clear. So I think that kind of clarity would be kind of cool for the LRPs to know. I don't think that is known. And so I wanted to kind of say that. And if it's happening, it may be happening internally for probation, but it isn't. I haven't been able to perceive that. I don't think my colleagues would either in that space.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
No, thank you. And I agree and understand what you're saying, but it would be difficult to say there's a checklist. There's an expectation of the DPO, whether it is field supervision or going to an LRP, STRP, SYTF, any type of placement, that they don't check out. It's not a transactional visit. It's not, okay, I'm here to anti-narcotic test you and then I'm going to leave. How are you doing? Goodbye. I mean, in the field, you check, is there food in the fridge for the kids, and are the kids going to school and everything. So that's often what a home visit is comprised of, whether it's in the facility or a home on probation. However, I don't want to equate a verification of services as an audit. It's not anything like that. But we would be remiss to go to a facility and not verify or ensure that the youth is in compliance with the orders from the court, if they're participating in educational services, substance abuse services, anything of that nature. So that's part of when I say verify, that they're there receiving the services that they're not only court ordered to, but all the previous discussions of risk and needs address as well. I hope I clarified.
No,
that.
that's great. I think that more audits, the better. So if they are doing that, I think that we need that kind of oversight and monitoring. So I appreciate it. I think so. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Prater. And to that question, is there checks and balances, like collecting data when you do the visits? Oh, youth are enrolled in school, or youth are enrolled, there's participation programs in-house with counseling, or, different things, like when you have a home environment of things. I know on some of them that I see just on Instagram, and, seeing the the activities that they have going on inside that are so productive, but that's because that's what they've developed, but it's not quite the criteria of all of them, or it is? That's a kind of a question.
Yes, I mean, it's not, like I said, they're not necessarily audits, but those are the type of information that's documented in progress reports to the court. And that's why I say we go out and we verify that services are being provided, because we also do have to provide that to the court. So it's incumbent upon the DPO doing the visit that they're checking all that they're enrolling in school. And that's when the relationships with the staff members at these facilities plays a huge part, because they can tell us, hey, you know, we're having a problem with this kid going to school today, or we're having a problem with them participating in certain activities. And then the DPO can not only address that with the youth specifically, but can also address it in a progress report to the court if they can't resolve the issue initially.
Thank you. Commissioner Kakani and then Commissioner Jackson.
So I'm just trying to figure out what like the universe of young people on supervision is, because in years past, the universe was given to us, you know, around like 2,275 or 2,297, which is obviously significantly smaller than the universe that you've provided in the documents late last night, early this morning, which is about 5,000. So is that just because populations were being excluded in the previous data, or are we saying that we have somehow doubled the number of young people who are in the field?
Yeah, no, yeah, I can answer that.
We're all fighting to say no, it has not doubled.
I'd love to hear Mr. Wolf-Gruber's voice, just because we've heard from the chief quite a bit too.
So this data request, and Wendy and I have gone back and forth to be consistent. We were consistent with what we provided in April, which is what was requested, what we provided in November. And I understand the frustration of getting different versions of data and caseloads and not caseloads and area office. As the chief said, caseloads don't tell you anything about the level of supervision. It's what we're truly doing. So I think we do need to work together, and if it's a committee, and then report publicly on the findings and how we'll report it going forward. I think that's a great start to give you the information, and as equally importantly as to the public. But I want to say, with respect to this, we were asked to provide information on active investigation. So the reason, Commissioner, you're seeing an increase is that we've included active investigation cases as well, which is also under field supervision.
Got it, which was not provided before.
Yeah. So there's a definition of some of the information. Wendy's just asked for information. That's the reason why we also provided, and I know it can be mind-numbing to see 6 or 7 bullet points, but I think it's helpful to illustrate the different types of caseloads, the different types of supervision. It's not my wish to have 6 or 7 notes, but I think it was necessary to provide additional clarity to each respective caseload to understand, and to understand how we arrived at the numbers as well. So active investigations is the universe of cases defined under one of the bullets there, pending DA review, various stages of the pre-trial or predisposition process. Those are cases that are under field supervision as well.
Which we had not received before. Right. And then SYTF, is that right? That we had not, I'm not seeing that as a, no, I see it now. I'm just saying in previous iterations of data, is that another population that was excluded? Sorry. Oh.
If I could just, before you start, explain, from my understanding from my conversation with Mr. Wills-Gruber, is that we did get it last year. It's actually the source of data that was some of your questions at the last time that Mr. Wills-Gruber was here. The last time we had the meeting, when we had the April data, it was not provided.
Okay.
And then I think that's what Ms. Aguilera can explain about the intensive supervision and how it's separated from the general juvenile field populations. Did I say that correctly?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then I noticed that we received intensive gang data before. Does that fall into a different group that you've provided today? Just trying to align the numbers in some way, but maybe I need to stop trying and just like start today.
So individuals on gang caseloads nationwide have been given and dispersed to regular caseloads. It's not a best practice to have individuals stigmatized and identified as gang members based upon anecdotal information. And that's quite frankly how we were placing individuals in some cases on gang caseloads. I have a brother that was in a gang. I have a tattoo that appears to be a gang symbol. I was identified in an area that known gang members frequent. So what that results in is stigmatization, and it results in over supervision, which doesn't go in context of the dynamic factors that we are required to review, and that's conducting of a risk assessment and evaluating the case. So nationwide, gang caseloads have gone by the wayside in a lot of jurisdictions, and I'll speak from personal experience overseeing 16,000 parolees in the state of New Jersey as executive director. We dissolved our gang caseloads about 15 years ago for those reasons.
Okay.
So why would we stigmatize our youth? We don't have adult gang caseloads. Why would we stigmatize our youth in that manner? I think the chief wants to add to it.
Okay.
So you'll find, instead of seeing them separately as gang, you'll find them mostly under the active supervision. So if you take a look at the chart, the investigations and regular investigations to the left don't represent folks actually being supervised, right? Those are just represent investigations.
Yeah.
But then active supervision, informal, dual community detention, that's the core of the actual people. Within there, you'll find those that were former gang caseload.
Okay. Got it. So you've, I guess, I don't know, was that a unit before that you've dissolved, or was that just like a label that has been removed? Does that question make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's no longer being supervised by a caseload of gangs supervision. Yeah.
Got it.
Commissioners, Commissioner Terry?
Oh.
Hello? Okay, thank you. So the IDC intake data shows that approximately 130 youth were detained in June. Probation reported to us that approximately 1,600 youth are under active supervision. And so my question is, of the 130 youth, approximately how many of those who were recently detained may be the result of like field supervision working or not working?
Yeah, things that make you go hum. I don't know that. I mean, I am sure we could get you a number of how many people are coming, or how many young people are coming back on a violation. It goes to the larger question in terms of what's the recidivism for these different groups over different areas, and what type of interventions are having an impact. I don't know.
Yeah.
We could certainly get you how many of, and I know we've provided that one before, which tells you how many young people coming back are coming back for violation, which means the release didn't work. But I don't know that we've broken down what type of release.
Yeah, we would love a real number. One of the reasons why I ask is because in an earlier commission meeting, maybe a recent one, I was telling a story about a mother that I'm in regular contact with, and she has a foster child that she took in a couple of years ago. Juvenile justice involved, obviously, based on the story that I told before. And she was so desperate for help from the probation officer because there was no supervision. And so she has, Narcan in the home. She has to have metal detectors in her home. She has to actively supervise, her son. And it had been very frustrating because he had reoffended several times over the years. You know what I mean? Gun, firearm possession, violent things. And it was really vital for her to have access to a probation officer to help sort of manage a lot of that. It sounds like she's in contact with a probation officer now. That wasn't the case for a long time. So I'm hoping whatever, newer models you guys have implemented is going to sort of carry that burden for her, because it's not fair for mothers, for parents to have to do the supervision for probation.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. And
do you want to speak to that? It looks like you.
Yeah, I mean, it's it, it's a bold statement, but I just want to make clear again, because of the rumors and people's misunderstanding, that it is true that there was a significant move from staff that did field supervision into the facilities. That's absolutely true. It is not true that we've abandoned supervision. As a matter of fact, what I'm saying is that we're doing two things at the same time: less staff in the field and a goal of increasing the supervision that was taking place. Now, that's counterintuitive for most people, because the reports that you're probably saying is, I'm no longer there, there's no one for me to go see. But I would invite you to just sort of consider that the supervision that was happening before was insufficient, and you were unlikely to be happy with it. It didn't meet the needs of the population. And that it's not that the removal of staff put us in a position in which we need to dig ourselves out of. It's that we were dissatisfied with what was happening before, and there's no time like the present, and we're moving to a different model in which we're going to do both things. We're going to use less staff to actually provide more supervision, because we have a much more clear plan on what types of interactions we value more. And I don't know if there's time, but if we could talk about where we want to go with the juvenile supervision, it shares some of the same components, but in a more intense fashion as the adult, which is saying we need in-person and meaningful interaction with you close in time as to when you start your probation period. We need those interactions to be meaningful. So if I can't see you many times, I need to see you in your residence. And then that the referrals at the onset are important, and that the ways that I determine how much more supervision you need have to do with dynamic assessments of what are happening with you, much more heavily valued than your commitment offense, right? Because what we had before is you could have your same level of supervision because of the commitment offense for the entire period. Well, if it's a small caseload of 20, that means you're only going to have those people for the entire period. And what happens to the rest of the folks? Because we've never had enough officers to supervise all 2,000 in an intense manner. So it's being much more mindful as to when we're having interaction, what type of interaction, and also giving the probationer a way to step down and not have such intense supervision.
I understand that. Part of what I'm saying is that young people, probationers know where the department is lacking. They know when there are shortages, and they know where to exploit those shortfalls, right?
Mhm.
And when they know that you guys don't have adequate staffing, they're taking advantage of that. And so part of what was happening when a probationer was not seeing a probation officer for months is that it's encouraging more criminal behavior, because they don't feel like they're being supervised. Mother is finding fentanyl in the home. She has to carry Narcan just to make sure she doesn't you know what I mean? Like things like that just meant that it's just long overdue, that whatever you have in place now, it was needed long ago, but it's good that you have it in place now.
Yeah, no, I want to make clear, I told you what's in place for the adults. That was shared with the courts, so they have a better understanding of what to expect when they place somebody on supervision. On the juvenile side, it's a work in progress. We will be meeting with the court so that they can see what they could expect out of the new model. I could give you sort of an advance, which it hasn't been made official, sort of, so you just have an idea of our thinking, how it's different from the adult. So it's very similar in the sense that we value having that initial assessment, validated assessment, occur at the very beginning, and that initial visit that rounds out that assessment happen. The difference with the adult is that what what we want to do is have that initial home visit within the first week. We understand that juveniles are different, and that rather than within the first 30 days, you really need to do it within the first week. So the assessment has to happen right at the beginning, and the initial visit that's going to inform the rest happens within the first week. And then if you end up being high risk, either because of the assessment or because of court order or because you're on electronic monitoring, that then you should expect that you're going to continue to see a probation officer twice a month. That if you're in the moderate, that you could expect once a month. And then that if you're in informal or low risk, then this is when we start deferring. We start doing things like video conferencing or in the office, or moving you on to the non-sworn staff, so that we're really just doing checkups. At any moment, because of dynamic factors, you could be moved back up. And then having assessments every 6 months to determine if, okay, you've had this level of intensity, things appear to be going well, then we can step you down. By doing that, we can better serve the entire population rather than just a small portion. And then, as you described, very little interaction. Then the young person knows that.
I had a question regarding the community detention. There are 321 people, 200 youth who are on community detention, and then 121 adults. And so I wanted to ask about the electronic monitoring contract that you all put forth before the board, which is valued at 35 million. So 35 million to monitor 321 people. And I think from the outside looking in, that seems very expensive. So are there other people who would also be benefiting from that contract, or is that the standard kind of going rate for that sort of service? Can you share more about that?
Yeah, the majority of that contract is for pretrial, adults on the pretrial side. And so that's why that number, and I think the number is 2,859 on the pretrial side of folks that are being served.
Commissioner, oh, go ahead.
What's the average cost per capita for electronic monitoring over an average of time? I don't know, 3 months, 6 months.
I don't know.
That's like a very broad. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
It's a big number even for that number of people to me, but I don't know the cost.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't need the ADP. You need the total number of people served in the year for that contract, right? Yeah, we could do the math and let you know.
Well, and then there's those that are on the electronic monitor system, but then there's no oversight by the electronic monitoring. That still is yielded to probation, correct?
The pretrial folks that we facilitate the contract, but we're not supervising. That's that large number. The majority of this contract serves them, and that's used as for JCOD and the courts to use in lieu of detention, but we're not supervising those folks.
I do want to say it is 12:15, and I believe we're going to be going over the 1 o'clock. So mandatory holdover, right? That's how probation does it. We have the chief here, but we have probation preparing for another presentation, which I'm sure there will be a lot of questions and comments. So yes, Commissioner Kakani, one more question for you, because after public comment, we're going to come back again for the closeout, but go ahead.
I just wanted to know if the department could provide like just a timeline. I know you said that like a PO gets assigned within a week, I think is what you said for a young person. And that person tries to make a home visit within a week, unless I misunderstood. But if there could be like a, kind of like you provided the LA supervision model, like what that is for the young person, or I don't know if there's different versions given the intensive supervision model. And then how many times are you hitting that, right? I mean, this is just an anomaly, but I happened to be observing a court case where a young person was released, I think much to his own surprise and his grandmother's surprise, on June 30th. I saw her 3 weeks later, happened to be in court. I saw her again. And I was like, what are you doing back here? How's your grandson? She said, oh, he was back in within a week. And I was like, oh, like, what happened? She's like, they just took too long. And I didn't, whatever. We ended up, she said that no one ever came, whatever. It could be that she missed a phone call. It could be that a probation officer didn't make it out there. But it would just be helpful to know, like, how many times you're also hitting the metrics that you've designated for yourself within the different models. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
I give you a peek behind the curtain. We've not implemented the juvenile model. It's the
Okay.
adult model that has now taken place for a couple of months. I give you a peek. The next part of this is a conversation with the courts, and then you'll get sort of the same grid we have on the adult, and then we can measure against it. Like, for example, we can now ask, hey, since we implemented, how many adults were seen within the first 30 days, right? We'll be able to do the same thing on the juvenile. We'll give you a date certain when the new model starts, after conversation with the courts, and then we can measure against it.
I mean, it does seem like there is some model in place, though, right? At least for the placement and secure youth treatment facility. Is there not a model in place for the young folks?
Well, there's
who
no,
are outside of that?
Well, there's going to be no change to the placement and the folks that we're not anticipating. It's for the rest of that, the 2,000
Yeah.
that we're being seen. Yeah. Well, they're following what they've been doing all along, and this is an area that has largely not been touched in terms of the levels of staffing that they have had as compared to everywhere else in the department. So until this change happens, it's just sort of been business as usual there in terms of how they work.
I guess it would be helpful to know what business as usual is, like if that's documented somewhere. And then much to Commissioner Jackson's kind of, I think it's related, right? Like how many young people are coming in on a violation, whether it's of their own doing or because they didn't have the support that they needed. But it feels like it's connected to whether a young person may or may not have seen a probation officer based on the like protocol that you all have outlined for young people, even if it's as business as usual. I'm just not sure what the protocol is, so maybe if there even is a protocol that you could share.
Commissioner Meredith and Prater both have questions. Do you want me to see first, or do you want to answer that? Okay. Commissioner Prater, I saw your hand up, but okay. Commissioner Meredith?
Yeah, I was just going to say we need to move on because time's getting along here. I got some other meetings to get to.
Oh,
It's two commissioners that have said they've had enough of me for 2 years.
well, I think that this is very relevant, and that's why I have allowed it. I understand. I know Wendy's right here telling me too. Believe that. And now you're on that end, and I'm in the middle. But I think these are important questions. I think it's an important conversation. I think probation came prepared with answers, and the ones that they don't have, they're even saying, "Let's make a motion and get the answers." So, I think now we find ourselves in probation's shoes, right, where we can't leave. We've clocked in and we can't clock out. Okay, so with that, we will take public comment. And Wendy, is there any public comment?
Okay, if you'd like to make public comment, please approach the podium. We use the raise your hand function. We do have a motion on the table, which is a request for information. That's so many pages back in my notes now. I've got to find it. It is a three-pronged motion. I really can't find it. Commissioner Shipp, do you want to restate it, and I'll look for where I wrote it down?
Yeah, I think it was a motion for how many people were seen. Um, I believe the types of referrals and how many referrals.
That's word for word what I wrote down. How many individuals were seen, how many referrals were made, and a description of the types of referrals. Commissioner Shipp made the motion, and it was seconded, I believe, by Commissioner Terry. Yes. Okay. All right. Public comment. Nobody in the room. Would you like to make public comment? Okay. And if you do, we have some online? Please begin.
We can't hear.
That's not turned on. Maybe you may need to actually flip the microphone on, Philip.
You and all your challenges with the microphone.
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Goldner. I'm a member of Local 685. Chief, you were mentioning that you weren't happy with what was happening in the field, and you brought the DPO2s to the hall, and you have a different model going forward. Does that new model going forward include the 685 officers, or is that something different?
You can respond. You can respond after, perhaps. But do we have any online public commenters? Okay, thank you. We're going to start with. Do we have a name? We'll start with Cornelius Pettis. Cornelius.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm referring to item number 6. The document says 8/12/2026. It says adult core and AB 109. If we look at adult core, it says the number of cases 18,076. It says one DPO2 to manage 172 cases. And I don't see one person being able to manage 172 cases. When I also look at AB 109, the chart says 10 DPO2s assigned to Alhambra. The key word is assigned. Flawed data leads to flawed conclusions. Scheduled would probably be a more accurate definition. There's not been 10 DPO2s in Alhambra the whole year of 2026. The maximum schedule at Alhambra is 5 DPO2s, which breaks down to 3 DPO2s in the day and 2 DPO2s at night. The chief has made it perfectly clear that the detention facilities are his priority. He has permanently assigned DPO2s, DPO1, supervisors, and directors to juvenile hall. The field offices have been decimated. In fact, we had 2 field offices that were closed in November with more to follow. When a probationer arrives for his appointment, he's given a return appointment. He cannot receive services because the officer does not have time to see him. A provider will not see a probationer without a referral. AB 109 probationers are being denied essential services, housing, medical, mental health, psychiatric evaluation, substance abuse, and domestic violence. The reason juvenile halls have been out of compliance for over 2 years is BSCC. They verify what probation presents. Over and over, probation has documented services rendered, and BSCC has verified that what was written did not coincide with what BSCC observed. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We have one final commenter who's anonymous. We'll unmute you.
Again, for diary. Yes, this is Alexis again. I'll be honest, to the POC, I would hate to play poker with you all because I'm watching you on YouTube, and I don't know how you can keep a straight face while someone is playing in your face, basically. Um, I I don't understand. How do you get more with less amount of staff? That's that's not even logically possible, and I'm really looking forward to hearing how that's going to happen. Prior to retiring, we did statistical reports every month. You may find it more beneficial and easier for a department for you to get those stats from each respective office, and that way you have the raw data and nothing that's being summarized or uh, reimagined. And then the last point, as to the unhoused comment, it is a really big problem. Prior to leaving the department, there was an individual, a gentleman, who showed up at the Centinela office, and then he was told that he's in the wrong area and was sent to the South Central office in Compton. And when he got there were no deputies there and had to go back. So you had an unhoused person that showed up on Normandy and Imperial and had to walk all the way to the Compton courthouse to be told there's no DPOs there and no supervisors there, and then had to walk all the way back to Centinela area office because there's no people in the office. We used to have a no wrong door policy, but how does that work when you don't have anybody in the office to be able to effectuate the no wrong door policy? It just doesn't mathematically make sense.
That's your time. Thank you. And so with that, we can move on. I can call the vote unless you wanted to go back to. Okay. Commissioners, please vote yes, no, or abstain on the motion by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Terry, regarding the request for information about adult field services. Thanks, Commissioner Jackson. Okay, Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Kakani, Commissioner Meredith, Commissioner Prater has stepped out, Commissioner Shipp, Commissioner Terry, and Chair Canales. So with a vote of 7-0 with Commissioner Prater absent, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. I was going to just ask him, yeah, does he want to address the question about 685?
Yeah, valid questions. What I described as the new model, that was probation officers. As a matter of fact, the new model requires full duty probation officers to do the sort of the full spectrum of the job. Absolutely. At no point have I said, or will you ever hear me say that I'm trying to replace probation. everything that I've presented today, at the core of it is probation officers, and there is no probation department without probation officers. So to be clear, none of this is to displace or to replace probation officers. If the department has ever taken to bring on additional folks, it's not at the cost of the recruitment of probation officers. So yes. And then if I could just look, I promise I will continue to try to be a better communicator. But at some point, you have to acknowledge the listener has to do their part. I mean, some of the questions I think show that they're not actually listening. And to the comment before by one of my own officers, that they understood what depopulation meant, and then they described the opposite of depopulation, or not listening to the fact that I said on more than one occasion, do not look at these caseloads because that is not how people are being supervised. So all I can think to do is to continue to present this information as clearly as I can and then give it to you in writing. But again, listeners are going to have to do their part as well.
Thank you for that, Chief. And I do want to address the issue of the time. As chair, I am responsible for moving things along, but I know that my fellow commissioners here, they show up for inspections, they read through the data, they read the reports, they show up for the meetings, and they have every right to their time for questions. And so, that's why I'm trying not to move you along and give you your time, because I feel you have your time coming. But if we could go through the next agenda, I'd be a little bit mindful. So with that, any more closing questions or comment to this agenda item before probation presents on the next one? Okay. Oh, thank you so much. Okay. All right. So agenda item number 7. For agenda item number 7, we will discuss and take possible action on a presentation by Chief Deputy Articles, the ombudsperson Sheehy, to explain the policies, directives, and procedures for how grievances and complaints are reviewed, resolved, and tracked by the Los Angeles County Probation Department. The presentation will include distinguishing grievances from complaints, explaining how grievances and complaints are escalated to internal affairs, law enforcement, and the Prison Rape Elimination Act Division, defining the process and procedures for handling grievances and complaints filed by youth in detention facilities, youth and adults under community supervision, and other interested parties, including family members and advocates. With this, I would like to turn it over to Wendy to discuss some of the items attached.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is that I am not certain that we have a current departmental policy or directive on grievances and complaints. I hope we can hear a little bit more about that, and I'd like to be able to share that publicly, since the policies certainly are supposed to be shared publicly. It very well may be, and I just don't have the right copy. So I would appreciate that. And then I also want to say that I did receive a draft report for the numbers of grievances and complaints for 2026 for January through June, but it is still a draft because they have implemented a new tracking system. I'm going to ask you to trust me and tell you that it's better. And the way that the information, not the numbers, I'm not saying anything about the numbers, that's for them to report. The tracking system is better. It creates better reports, but the data is not finalized. And so rather than have the same problem that we've had in previous meetings where we receive data that isn't fully up to date, it was my suggestion that they wait and provide that report to us separately and allow us to share that to the public when it is finalized and complete. So the information that you have received is for the calendar year 2025. And I think it would be appropriate to ask about how the trends for 2026 mirror or do not mirror 2025. And I will send you all the data and share it publicly as soon as we have the 2026 data.
Thank you, Chief Deputy.
Okay. Great. So we have Tanika Sheehy and also Dan Carpenter, who maybe you could introduce yourselves to begin.
Hello. Good morning or afternoon. I'm Tanika Sheehy Gomez. I'm the Department Ombudsman, and we have Director Dan Carpenter Jr. And so, what we want to be clear is that um, I know the Commission puts the grievances and complaints together, but within Los Angeles County, we consider grievances to be youth grievances. And so Mr. Carpenter is going to talk about youth grievances. It's wonderful. And I am going to talk about complaints. So basically, do you want me to start with complaints real quick? I'll be fast. Uh, go to, do we have another page? The first page. So just to be clear, the department ombudsman operates a helpline. It's an 800 number. And we receive complaints or contacts or compliments from everyone. So we are um, youth and adults. So anybody that's a probation client, AB 109, ACOR, our placement, STRTPs, and all those wonderful acronyms, we take complaints from everyone. So just to be clear of who's speaking, and when you ask your questions, we understand the grievances in the real world. A grievance is a complaint, but within LA County probation, if you say grievance, then we know internally that's a youth grievance. And then if it's a complaint, if a youth calls the ombudsman, we consider it a complaint. Or thumbs up? Okay. Excellent. And do we have any more slides? Perfect. We can start there. So for 2025, this is the complaints that the Ombudsman Office received from everywhere. So in 2025, we had 1,089 complaints, and that's adult and juvenile. And at the bottom is a breakdown between the quarters, and if it came from an adult or a juvenile or other. So our other is large because everyone in Los Angeles County that has a concern calls the probation ombudsman. So it could be long-term care. The call needs to go to long-term care. It needs to go to Department of Mental Health. Just so anything that you see that's other is really something that does not pertain to Los Angeles County Probation Department. However, we try not to send anyone away, so we try to give you the information of where you need to go. So with that number, I would ask the commissioners to go back and ask your Board of Supervisors, maybe they need to create a county ombudsman, because we get a number of calls and 211 refers them to us as well. But I think there's enough calls and data to show that maybe all of the LA County departments, like there's one person that can help direct them. Just my 2 cents. If you go to the next slide, and this is just more information, juvenile, adult, other. And then we try to break it down between, is it juvenile hall? Is it juvenile field? Is it special services? Is it placement or our camps or SYTF? So that's just a little more of a breakdown. So prior to this year, we maintained all of our data on an Excel sheet. And so we've been doing that for years. And so the department within the last year has approved and implemented and developed a management system. And so we're able to break down the numbers and easily produce reports. So it was implemented in July. And so we moved all the data from our Excel to our database. And so although we do have a report and do have numbers from January to June, I personally would like to go and validate that information before we share. So if you in the middle, that's AB 109, our ACOR, and our AISB. That's our SEO, all these acronyms are pretrial services. So anybody that's adult within probation that is not considered juvenile. That makes sense. And then the last one is our admin, our internal affairs, our management services, and then, of course, all of our other. Okay, if you go to the next slide. The types of things that we get calls involving, we've broken them down over the years. So this new system, we call it OMS, Ombudsman Management System, is going to be able to further break down the types of complaints that we handle. Employee information only, we get a lot of information only. We have concerned citizens, neighbors, people that are trying to report things that the probationers have done or are doing that are violating, that they feel are violating their terms of probation. So that's our information only. So what we do not violate our, our query. So therefore, we cannot validate if that person's on probation. However, we will take the concern. If the person's on probation, we will share it with the probation officer, and they will determine what to do with that next. Employee conduct. So if you look into the larger rectangle there, the employee conduct breakdown, the safety concern, negative behavior or lack of attention, or positive action. Those are those letters of accommodation. So in the new system, we're able to break that down even further to identify exactly what the issue is. And so I'm going to note there, if it's anything dealing with employee conduct, we refer that to internal affairs. So it's not the negative actions, not the positive ones. But so, because our office we're doing research, we're basically trying to resolve the issue. But if there's something going on with employee conduct, we're going to turn that over to a more formal investigation. Oh, that's my inform the DPO. Visitation, any concerns related to visitation, our medical, case management. We do conflict coaching. So sometimes we just need to help the caller determine what direction that they want to go or determine what the issue is. We do not handle staff concerns. So a lot of the conflict coaching, I call it, it's because staff have called us for issues, but our staff have a different process. So I don't want to turn them away. So anybody that calls the ombudsman who are probation employees, we will have a wonderful conversation and we will try to determine which direction you should, where you should go. Facility issues, the locks don't work, it's too hot, the water is hot. Of course, our PREA, all PREA are referred to internal affairs. Human resources, restitution is usually our victims that don't feel that they're receiving the funds that they were granted during court proceedings. Civil litigation. Civil litigation is where people that have been on probation in the past are trying to get more information about their cases, and we refer them to our archives and our civil litigation. Education, LACO, our partners, and mental is DMH, our partners. Interpreter services, if you need translation services, sign language, hard of hearing, they can contact us. And personals, people looking for their personals that may have been in custody in the past and left without taking their personals, or staff have taken their personals. So those are just some different categories. So I just want to reiterate, we're just a resource to youth who are in our care. We're a resource to their parents. We are a resource to anyone. We're just one of the options that the youth have to call the ombudsman. And we also have the state ombudsman, who's presented in the past. So we've both been through the ombudsman trainings to attempt to, Los Angeles County is a little different because our ombudsman is inside of the probation department, but the probation department management has been very respectful and honoring an attempt for independence and confidentiality as best that they can. And supported the Ombudsman Office into developing from the PRIT to the POC to now actually having a management system, actually having facility ombudsman placed into Los Padrinos and Barry J. Nyerdoff, and have really supported the idea of being able to have somebody that can provide some resolve outside of the youth grievance process. So I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Carpenter that's going to talk about the youth grievance process and answer any questions afterwards.
Thank you. You can skip the first two slides. We can go to educating youth on the grievance process. When they enter the facility during the intake process, that's when they're first notified about grievances. During that orientation process, they're also taught within the first 72 hours of being detained. Excuse me. We also have, once a month, we have the grievance officers walk around the institution and do a monthly town hall meeting, which we have done this week, starting this week. So we should be done early next week, completing all those tasks. The way the youth can file a grievance is by the goldenrod sheets. They can use the LACO computers, and by placing them in the black box in the units. They can also let a staff know. They can let a CBO know. They can let a nurse know. And then it is submitted into our GMS system. And that's how the process begins. Oh, yeah, you can skip the next slide. Again, next slide. Next slide. And next slide. Okay, the process and handling of grievances and appeals. Grievances are reviewed weekly, and the facility grievances are classified, and we need to respond within 3 days. Grievance classifications include low level, which can be clothing, hygiene. The supervisor is notified, and if it's anything that's more severe, it's elevated to the supervisor immediately, which would be a red flag grievance. The youth then meets with the supervisor and the director, and then that outcome is taken care of. If a grievance needs to be elevated to PREA, we have a PREA coordinator on site. If it needs to be referred to internal affairs, then we will refer those to internal affairs. I must say, one thing that help us when referring these to law enforcement, internal affairs, or PREA, our latest technology really assists us because we're able to view the cameras and we can get ahead of those prior to referring those to those other agencies, or not the agencies, referring to internal affairs. Skip, next slide. Next slide. Next slide. And next slide. You should be able to see the data there. These are the grievances from 2025 through 2026 at our facilities. Yeah, if you can zoom in a little bit. If you notice, the grievances at Kilpatrick, they opened in November of 2025. That's why they have that low number there. And as it elevated once they opened up. But it's consistent, pretty consistent across the board. And if you go to the next slide, we can go down. And these are the average days it takes to process a grievance by facility. As you can see there, next slide. Next slide. These are youth grievances which we receive throughout the department. And you see a lot of them are facility issues, programming, medical and health, housing change, safety concerns, school issues, hygiene, clothing issues, food service, and mental health. So as you see, those are pretty consistent across the line. Facility issues can include air conditioner. It's too cold. They need a blanket. The telephones don't work. Programming, we see where they're requesting more programming. They like programmers to stay a little longer. Medical, we see that happening. Food concerns are also some of the grievances that they tend to file. Okay. Is there any questions?
Do you have any questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Jackson.
I have a comment. So what I was saying earlier during another agenda item is that when I'm performing some of my inspections, after our LP visit, I felt like that was a more positive outcome. You guys have a better process. The results are well documented. We did had some criticism of GMS not working properly, but it sounds like that was fixed. And my first question was, after GMS was fixed, did you guys then go back to inform the youth that the links were functional?
Yes, and we checked today and the links are currently working
Okay.
on the LACO computers.
Okay, great. The the more general feedback is that whenever I'm doing my inspections, it always feels like the young people are not really comfortable, confident, or trusting of the grievance process. And so I'm curious about efforts that you guys are taking to sort of improve that. So I mean, there's a healthy amount of grievances, but
Right.
they're more comfortable grieving about food, for example, or maybe wanting a better pair of shoes than they are with potentially a staff member maybe touching them inappropriately. And that was based on an interview that I had with a young person just a couple of weeks ago. And so why they feel more comfortable complaining about shoes versus a real complaint is something that I would want to know what you guys are doing about improving the perception of the grievance process and making them more confident in filing them.
Yes, well, I know there was a process taking place to put kiosk in a day room. I believe that was scrapped, so now they're going to tablets. So that there will be wireless and they'll be able to get on them and submit their grievance without actually having to ask the staff for a pencil or whatever to write their grievances down. And it can be more confidential for them on that iPad.
Do you feel like they're educated on who has access, like whose role it is to review the grievances? I know that there are internal people and they probably see someone go into the box physically, collect the
Yes.
grievances, and then they follow up. There's that whole part. But even when I'm coming in as a commissioner that's inspecting, they're even suspicious of me, probably just because I'm like an external party. But the truth is that when I'm explaining that I'm there and why I'm there, they don't feel like I'm there to objectively investigate things. And I think probably that's the mistrust of just outsiders in general. But I feel like it would be helpful if probation had, there was some sort of concerted effort to try to make grievance processing just more approachable to young people, if you ask me.
Yes. Go ahead.
Well, part of the reason for the Chief HIGA years ago establishing was the Ombudsman Office is because of the same, feeling of mistrust with the grievance process. I believe when Pritt talked about the grievance process, they say, staff were throwing the grievances, literally in the trash can. And so I don't know if the mistrust concept will ever go away. Hopefully not, but I'm sorry, hopefully it does. But I think that's where the department really is trying to put efforts and other other ways to be able to file a grievance, or to them implementing the youth councils where they could at least have go to their leader from their youth council and be able to articulate the concerns that are going on. Our ombudsmen have gone to youth council meetings just to say, hey, we are here, we're another resource that you're able to voice your concerns. And anytime a youth calls us, our office, we also tell them to go and advocate, to be able to advocate for themselves and file a grievance if they would like to file a grievance. So we can just, encourage advocacy, but they also know there's other ways to get their voice across. We've had youth actually tell their parents their concerns during visitation, and then the parents can call us. So there's different ways to get a message across without actually having to file a grievance. And sometimes the literacy isn't there, where they don't feel comfortable writing it out because they might not have that skill, to be able to write down what the issue is and feel confident that somebody's going to understand it. So sometimes, even in the grievances, they'll ask to talk to the ombudsman. So they don't have to write out the issue. So no one will see it. They can just talk to us. And now that we're implementing having somebody at the facility, it's a little bit easier to, because we'll have the officers might just be walking through and they'll say, hey, I want to talk to that person. So that's a positive to me, because now they're recognizing, they're told about the grievance process, and the ombudsman and the youth bill of rights are on all of the walls. So it's kind of like, I've had youth call, actually I've had staff call and put the youth on the phone, and the youth is going over their bill of rights and what's being violated. I chuckle, but that's a wonderful improvement from when I first came in.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Ship.
Yeah, so I know the department at one point did have this electronic system of GMS, and it was done away because of the issues. When I went on my inspection for Kilpatrick, what we saw was that the system had, I mean, one of the issues took 20 days for a response, and maybe that was a system error, maybe it got responded in a different way. But one of the bigger issues in the past was that things were just falling to the back with the system. Can you talk a little bit about why the department decided to go back to this electronic system that once was flawed? Have there been some notable improvements or updates, or what changes have been made to prepare this new system, and how that decision was made?
Well, I know there's constantly updates. They're constantly updating GMS, and it seems to be working on our end. We're able to pull a lot of data from that when we, with our data input. So it seems to be working. I don't think we're quite there, ready to get rid of it. It seems to be working. We're constantly working on improvements, and we're able to pull the data that we're looking for.
Um, no, thank you for that. And then also, I think also another thing that I'm hearing is that and not from this meeting today, but from young people, is that there is a confusion about like who do they go to, what complaints goes to who, and how that works, and whether those complaints can cross over. I think I was just talking to one youth in LP who talked about making his complaint and not getting something substantive, and wanting to talk to somebody else, and not even knowing that we had uh, an ombuds department outside of that is technically independent as well, right? And so I think there needs to be some work on that, and I also think that PLC can do some work on that. So if possible, um, I'd like to make a motion that we make a subcommittee on this.
second for that motion?
Just on the grievance process in general.
Mhm.
Second that.
Okay, that's seconded by Commissioner Kakani. All right, any other commissioners' questions or comments before we move on to public? Yes, Commissioner Kakani?
Thank you. Just really quickly, so what is the you may have said it, and I'm sorry if I didn't hear it, but like what's the quality assurance process, right? So if, for example, we saw a grievance for which there was like a 20-day delay, or do you get alerted somewhere? Do you how does, is it all just internal, like within the facility? Or is there some sort of larger system where these things kind of get checked against?
GMS will alert you when the grievance is due.
Okay.
So once you do that initial, it starts the clock.
And alerts you being the grievance officer at the facility.
The grievance officer, yes. they
Okay,
do.
but who's above that grievance officer? Is that you?
Yes, at LP.
Okay.
Yes.
So then, yeah, so what?
So I don't get an alert, no.
Okay, but do you find out how many times like a grievance officer maybe
Yes.
hasn't resolved something in a month?
Right, yeah. They'll
Okay.
send out emails.
I'm sorry?
They'll send out emails.
GMS sends out the emails?
No, the grievance officer.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, so if the grievance officer has exceeded their resolution period,
Okay.
instead of 10 days of it being resolved, it has taken much longer, it's fell through the cracks. Do you somehow get notified at any point beyond the grievance officer? Is there a systemic way of you being notified?
No.
Okay. So then what type of quality assurance is occurring?
Well,
Beyond-
we send those emails. We follow up with the supervisors and the directors by letting them know this grievance needs to be closed.
Okay.
Right. If we need to go to the director on duty or the officer of the day, we'll do that as well.
Okay. And then do you also check for I've noticed that on the grievance forms, for example, every one of them has a handwritten insertion that youth decline, or they cross out youth received a copy of the grievance and it says youth declined a copy, but it's handwritten. So I'm just I actually now forgot my question, but it's why who made that decision to amend the form so that young people can decline a copy? And then do you also do quality assurance in terms of the quality of resolving the grievance?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we do that. We make sure the grievance is closed. Modifying the form, I'm not sure. They probably tried to give the youth a copy and they just didn't want it.
Okay.
So that was the way to notate it.
Yes. Director Rahman, did you want to address something?
Good afternoon. Wanted to add that one of the parts of the quality assurance is that the grievance has to go to the director for signature. So the director of that division gets to see the entire grievance. What did the youth grieve? What was the resolution? And at times you do catch that maybe there was two parts to the grievance and the second part wasn't actually completed. And you can give it back and say, hey, the kid had two issues. You only answered one. Take this back. So that is part of the quality assurance measures that are in place.
Thank you. Is there any more questions or comments? Wendy, would you like to?
I think I would like to make a quick comment, which is that Ms. Shihi Gomez, it's hard to call you by your last name, because we have worked very effectively together, I think, over the last 5.5 years since the existence of the POC. When the Probation Oversight Commission was created, there was an idea that we would also have a function of receiving and reviewing grievances and complaints, both from young people and adults. That was not originally funded. And then shortly after the POC started, OICR, the Office of Youth and Community Restoration, was developed at the statewide level. That's who Ms. Shihi Gomez referred to as the state ombudsman. And they were actually given authority to investigate complaints in a real external way to the department. And so it was my opinion, and I think everybody has kind of moved in that direction, that it's better to have an actual outside organization be investigating grievances that has the ability to do so. But I still get calls often. I'm not going to say often because that sounds like a number, and it's not actually that often, but sometimes. I get phone calls a lot of times from parents, sometimes from attorneys. I also get referrals from board offices where parent or someone has referred to their supervisor and the supervisor sends them back to me. I have had an extremely positive experience working both with Ms. Gomez and her team in the Probation Ombudsman's office as well as the OICR Ombudsman's office. And what I'm able to do is say to, mom, here are the things you could do to elevate this problem. I will help you do all of them. Which ones do you want me to do? And what you may not know is that there have been multiple times where I have called Michelle Gomez, and there was one time I clearly remember where she was like, "Don't tell me their name. I don't want to know their name. Just tell me the problem." And then she resolved it. There's this thing in probation's grievance policy, I assume is still there, that says it's best to address the grievance at the lowest level possible, and that's why I think this relationship works effectively between the Ombudsman's office and the Probation Oversight Commission. So I'm very excited about a subcommittee because I think there are a lot of issues to continue to address, more than we can do today. But I just wanted to let you know how closely we're working together. Okay, so we have a motion on the table to create a subcommittee to address the grievance process. I think I heard you say grievance process, Commissionership, focused on the grievance process in the facilities rather than the complaint process.
Yeah, it will be. Well, actually, I would hope it was on both. Actually,
Okay.
to be, yeah, because especially with the GMS system, like I just want to make sure that, and then also trying to divide what goes where. I think that is also important.
Okay, so with that, we'll take public comment on this item, and thank you very much to the panelists. Anybody in the room want to give public comment? Please join. And if there are folks online, I encourage you to raise your hand with the little raise your hand icon or dial *3 on your phone, and you can begin.
Once again, Philip Goldner, a member of Local 685. I, in fact, did call Officer Sheehy or Madam Sheehy, and we had a great conversation. In fact, I called the ombudsperson because I didn't really know what to expect. I had an issue on the job, and then I called the ombudsperson and said, told her what my issue was. And it was more like a therapy session, quite honestly. I said that to you. I said, wow, I mean, we're just having it was like over an hour or two. So do I send you a bill? You sent me? I'm not sure. But yeah, I was trying to get somewhere, and then we just kind of talked for a while and then hung up. That was that. But there are some issues that we want to bring up as officers, and I thought that would be a good venue. But perhaps there's more appropriate venues. With regards to the grievances, every shift we have a structure with the kids, and we talk about the things that are important. Here are your rights. This is our program for today. We have this program coming in. We're going to do this. We have rec at this time, and we talk about these things. Oh, and by the way, on the wall right there, in every single unit, there's a plastic covering of all the rights of everybody. And guess what? There's two ombudspersons, right? There's a California ombudsperson, and there's a sign that looks like a Domino's pizza ad, and it's for, it's for our probation ombudsperson. I make light, but with the grievances, this is a very important issue, and I don't have a lot of time, but if we're talking about civil service protections potentially being taken away, that's an issue that is present right now. A grievance can be used as hearsay, and if our rights are taken away, then that could get people fired. So we need a protection there. We need an extra layer as officers to give us like a safety net. Also, how about creating a structure script? When I say structure, I mean the speech that we give in the morning. Why not create a script for the officers? So in the morning, we sit there and we're like, okay, let's talk about the things that are important to probation so that we don't miss anything.
Thank you. Okay, I think we don't have any online public commenters, so with your permission, I'll call the vote. Yeah. Okay, so we're just voting to form a subcommittee on grievances and complaints. Please vote yes, no, or abstain. I can't find my list, so I'm just gonna do it this way. Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Kokani? Yes. Commissioner Shipp?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry? Yes. Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson? Chair Canales? So with Commissioner Prater being absent, the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you so much. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 8. We do not need to discuss nor take public comment on this item. It's just for reference documents information only. Item 8 includes documents provided for informational. Oh, I apologize. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you very much for your presentation and your answers. So item 8 includes documents provided for informational and transparency purposes only. We will not be discussing or acting on them during this meeting. Commissioners, if you would like any of the attachments agendized or placed on a future agenda, you will have the opportunity to do so under the next agenda item. If anyone in the public has comments on these items, but we just said you can do it in. Okay. Yeah, you can email your comments in under agenda item number 10. Okay, now moving on to agenda item number 9. This one is for commissioners and PO staff comment only. We do not take public comment on this item. This is for item matters not posted on the agenda. Item 9 is for matters not posted on the agenda to discuss or to place on a future meeting agenda for action. Commissioners, do you have any announcements or items you would like placed on a future agenda? Yes, Commissioner Kakani?
I don't know if this is where this goes, but I know that after my visit to Kilpatrick, there was kind of a write-up and a response from the department. I know, and I'd love for that to be shared publicly. So I don't know if that's like where this, it's not really an agenda item, but it's a request. Similarly, when Commissioner Jackson and I visited Barry J., there was a document that we had drafted collectively about our kind of reaction and concerns. So would love for that to also be made public and shared. Is this
Yes,
where this
thank you.
happens?
I would like instruction from you all about how to address what Commissioner Kakani is saying, which is that if one commissioner or two commissioners go and do an inspection and do a write-up on what they observe and the recommendations, obviously that's very different than like the Los Padrinos inspection. That was this official inspection that's vetted and voted on by all of you. So what do you recommend be the protocol about how something like that is shared amongst the commissioners, with the Board of Supervisors? I will tell you, we do share those notes with probation. That feels like an obvious thing to do. But, at what point does it become public, and make sure that everyone understands that that's not an official POC statement unless and until the POC chooses to vote on it. I think that's the way it's described in the ordinance, that the POC reports all must be voted on by the body. So we're just looking for guidance on how to do that.
In the past, the BSCC has said that anything we do there is
Go
considered
ahead.
an inspection. Was it? In the past, BSCC has said when we do that, it is considered an inspection.
We call it an inspection too. If you remember in the training that we did, we differentiate between the official inspection, which is the once annual inspection where we create the report, and unofficial inspections that are announced or unannounced visits to the facility with the purpose of looking at something. So agreed. I think the difference is it's not something that ends up being the officially published inspection unless you all vote to make it so. So how do we get you the information? Or do we have to put it on the agenda? What are your thoughts about that?
Sure, Meredith?
I would put on a future agenda item and maybe talk with BSCC, because we did that in the past, but we had like a short version that we could just submit, and then we could just vote on it when it comes to a meeting.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I mean, I'd love for it to be shared with other commissioners, just so they also have the opportunity to read it before should they choose to do a visit. And certainly with board offices who, I think consider our visits when making decisions and asking questions. So anyway, just wanted to let that.
No, and I think that that's important, because I know I've also done visits too and written up this whole email of everything, and then it's like, how do you get this information out to the general public? So, okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll move forward with that. All right, anything else, Commissioner Meredith? Yes.
Yes, I want to point out that on August 24th, 1968, 8 courageous firefighters from Los Angeles County Fire Department and Los Angeles County Probation Department, Crew 44, perished fighting the canyon fire above the cities of Azusa and Glendora. And there's a plaque up there at Station 97 that Catherine Barger and retired Chief Darrell Osby placed there in recognition of these members. And I believe the department's going to do a little service on the 24th up there. I think Chief Arcos is coordinating that. So I will send over the names to for the minutes later.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Meredith. Okay, anything else before we move on to agenda item 10? Okay. Opportunity for the public to address Probation Oversight Commission. Agenda item number 10 is an invitation for members of the public to address the commission on items not on the agenda. Wendy, please facilitate public comment for us.
Okay, so we're going to do general public comment. Please come up to the podium, use the raise your hand function online, or dial *3 on your phone, and we will get started. You can begin.
I feel like I've been here a lot this morning. Put on my glasses so I can. Okay, good morning. Once again, my name is Philip Goldner. I'm a Los Angeles County Deputy Probation Officer speaking in my individual capacity today. Although I am a Local 685 member, I want to make one point about the proposed civil service changes. You cannot discipline, reorganize, or reclassify your way out of attrition. If probation is losing substantially more employees than it's replacing, changing disciplinary procedures does not create officers. It does not fill vacancies, reduce mandatory overtime, address burnout, or provide the specialized training needed to safely supervise youth with the youth who have significant behavioral needs challenges. So I respectfully ask, what measurable staffing problem will these changes actually solve? If the long-term strategy is replacing sworn positions with lower cost non-sworn classifications, then the public deserves an honest discussion about this policy choice. I'm not opposed to accountability. Employees who commit genuine misconduct should be disciplined. But a staffing shortage is a workforce problem, not a disciplinary problem. Hire people, retain experienced officers, reduce mandatory overtime, provide the training and resources needed to do this job safely. That's my statement. I'll just say right now, there's a lot of confusion and exasperation and frustration with officers because we have mandatory overtime now. We have a MOU that gives us 40-hour work weeks, and now you just added 8 hours or 16, for the whole pay period. Like, that's not fair, and that's not in the contract. So how that even permissible? Also, there's a cap on overtime. It says you can't work more than 64 hours. I'll tell you right now, I want to work all the overtime hours I could get. I was working 70 to 80 overtime hours. Now I'm capped at 64. So I think that there's like a dynamic situation. The Board of Supervisors trying to take away our civil service protections so they could discipline us into behaving well. I don't think that's going to work. I think you really need to see what the problem is and find out a better solution than taking away our union protections.
Thank you. We do have 2 online speakers. We'll start with Cornelius Pettis.
Yes, mine is beef. Yeah, Cornelius, thank you again. I'm respectfully requesting an in-person town hall meeting with the chief at Los Padrinos within the next 3 weeks to address communication with line staff. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have 1 call-in user. You may need to dial *6 on your phone to unmute yourself.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon. This is
Yes,
Mel.
we can hear you.
Okay. This is Mel. Okay. Hi. This is Mel. A couple things. I just wanted to actually tag on to the last comment. I would suggest that if there is a town hall that is actually at a neutral site, like a park that's been done before, considering you have a lot of officers who are currently off on injury and will be unable to walk into a county facility. The comment I was going to ask was, I just wanted to highlight, going back to the recent conversation with the ombudsperson's office. I want to second not the motion, but second the request of Ms. Sheehy as it relates to if you can go back to the county board of supervisors and ask them to implement a county ombudsman, because I know the ombudsman line, because I know that the Probation Information Center receives a plethora amount of calls on a daily that have to be routed to the ombudsperson's office, internal affairs as well. And considering we're only losing staff and officers and we're not able to hire anyone new, it makes it very challenging and difficult to be able to navigate that operation with no or limited amount of staffing. And then the last thing, while I do appreciate Commissioner Meredith acknowledging the staff and the deputies that were involved with the Camp Rocky incident, I do think it's something that should be highlighted by the POC. I regularly follow you all on YouTube and I see all the YouTube shorts and the videos that you do. And if I did miss it, could someone send me a direct link? But I did not see any videos about highlighting the officers that were involved in that. And I only ask that to be, to be transparent and to make a balanced approach as it relates to the Probation Oversight Commission. That's all I have. Thank you. You have a blessed day. Thank you.
Wow, one final commenter, that's Xenia.
Hi, this is just in response to Vieira's earlier comment dismissing public commenters and saying that listeners have to do their part. Because I just don't think he's been doing his part in listening to the people on the ground doing the work and taking the time out of their day to report back how things actually are, just not just how he claims things are. Having an unhoused individual having to walk miles and miles across the city in a heat wave in order to try and stay out of jail because there are no staff at the assigned office is a huge problem and is unacceptable. He can insist that less staff can magically do more supervision, but you're getting feedback that it's not working and you refuse to do anything but respond with condescension. I'm not someone in favor of giving more and more money to the probation department. That's not what I'm advocating for here. It's just disheartening to see someone in charge of this department insist that everyone else but him is too dumb to understand his assertions rather than taking in contradicting information from those under him. I hope that he looks up the definition of active listening and learns how to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's it, right, Janae? Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. And before we adjourn this meeting, I would just like to close this meeting lifting up the name of Rosendo, a youth who recently lost his life. He played an instrumental role in the vision and development of the Barry J. Dog Park mural. In the words of Probation, he brought creativity, hope, and spirit to a project that will continue to inspire others. Condolences to his loved ones and all that came to know him, Probation that worked with him in his transformation, and the programs that love him dearly and believed in him, and may he rest in peace. And with that, I thank you all for joining us and sharing your comments. As a quick reminder, be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel at LA County POC. To receive reminders about our upcoming meetings, visit our website at poc.lacounty.gov to subscribe to our email listing. It is now 1:21. Can I have a motion to adjourn today's meeting? Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Kakani. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Shipp. Please vote with an aye vote. Aye. Okay, thank you so much. Meeting is adjourned.